Chapter 662. Who are you? How dare you attack an imperial guard? Man Lang and the others had already surrounded Li Zongjiu and Kuan Erisher. Among them, Su Sha was still standing at her original spot. The others immediately turned around and left, afraid that they would be implicated. The expressions of the people outside immediately changed. When Su Hong saw that the one who attacked was Li Zongjiu, he was also surprised. Why is it this brat again? Is this brat trying to cause trouble? And that girl Su Sha, why is she involved as well? It seems that she is quite familiar with Li Zongjiu and the others. How dare you dirty my boots? Li Zongjiu rolled up his sleeves and pointed at the mud on his boots. Everyone was shocked by such a baffling reason. Barbarian Wolf's eyes widened. Brat, could it be that you seriously injured an imperial guard in front of so many imperial guards just because of a bit of mud on your shoes? After that imperial guard fell to the ground, he never got up again. Obviously, he was beaten to the ground by Li Zongjiu. Such a scene simply shocked everyone. Isn't this brat too fierce? Or does this brat have a guilty conscience? Is he looking for an excuse to attack? But this excuse is too sudden. There's no consideration at all. Take him down. Since that's the case, there's no need to wait. Man Lang immediately gave the order. Immediately, the surrounding imperial guards rushed forward without hesitation. The swords in their hands slashed downwards. The sharp sword chi instantly sealed off Li Zongjiu's front and back. However, Li Zongjiu's figure flickered. He immediately released several afterimages and rushed towards these people. In an instant, there were already countless afterimages that sent more than 20 imperial guards flying. Man Lang's eyes were filled with shock. He didn't expect Li Zongjiu's skills to be so extraordinary. From afar, Pei Si was slightly shocked when he saw Li Zongjiu's movements. This was because Li Zongjiu's movements were faster than he imagined. He couldn't even see Li Zongjiu's figure clearly. If I were to face Li Zongjiu's skills, I would probably have to forcefully resist. Pei Si thought in his heart. In his heart, he was also secretly comparing himself with Li Zongjiu. Of course, when he was comparing himself, he naturally put himself in an advantageous position. It seemed that he was always thinking that with his strength, he could easily take down Li Zongjiu. The barbarian wolf sword came out like a dragon. This sword strike even contained the sword Dao that he had cultivated for more than 40 years. The sword in his hand was also affectionately named by Man Lang as the Barbarian King's Sword. It was because he had invited an elemental rune grandmaster to inscribe an elemental rune formation on the sword. This formation would allow the strength and weight of the sword to increase exponentially when he attacked, just like how the Barbarian King wielded a heavy sword. The power was definitely not what it looked like. Right now was a very good opportunity to perform a meritorious service. Therefore, Man Lang definitely wouldn't be soft-hearted. When he attacked, he fully displayed the strength of a grade 1 Yuan monarch. Ordinary imperial guards were already in the Yuan ancestor realm. If they wanted to have a position, they would first have to break through to the Yuan monarch realm. Clang! This sword slashed towards Li Zongjiu. Originally, this sword slashed towards Li Zongjiu's head. However, Li Zongjiu remained in his original position. When the sword slashed down, he only stretched out his hand and easily caught the sword. He had only used 2 fingers. How dare you dirty my shoes with such little strength? Li Zongjiu's tone was as cold as frost. It was as if the shoes were the most beloved thing in his life. However, it had been sullied in the end. This made people sigh. It seemed like every genius had their own hobbies. However, they didn't expect Li Zongjiu's hobbies to be this pair of shoes. You're courting death. Man Lang glared at Li Zongjiu in front of him. He wanted to pull out his sword and slash Li Zongjiu's head. At the same time, the tip of the sword rotated, wanting to cut off Li Zongjiu's 2 fingers. How dare he look down on Man Lang and stop his sword with 2 fingers? Clang! Li Zongjiu used a little strength and broke the sword. Barbarian Wolf's body flew backwards and rolled backwards. Li Zongjiu flicked his finger and flicked the broken sword in his hand. With a ka-chi sound, one of Man Lang's legs was pierced through. Ah! Man Lang immediately held his leg and cried out loudly. This was simply an unexpected disaster. How could there be such a vicious and merciless brat who dared to hurt others in public? How dare you? Xiao Han's eyes stared at Li Zongjiu. He wanted to see something from Li Zongjiu's body. Because Li Zongjiu suddenly jumped out, there must be a reason. You're just a dog that bullies others. Not only did you disturb my mood, you even dirted my shoes. Not only did you dirted my shoes, you even wanted to silence me. I say, you really have guts. You even dare to silence me. If you have the ability, then come and catch me. Li Zongjiu placed his hands on his waist and shook the Imperial Alchemist token on his body. Just now, Li Zongjiu had directly hung up this token. In the darkness, it was extremely dazzling. However, this time, Li Zongjiu was a little too arrogant. This was because the Imperial Alchemist's position was only equivalent to a standard 4th-grade alchemist. However, as the commander of the Imperial Guards, Xiao Han was a standard 3rd-grade alchemist of the Imperial Court. If he wanted to catch Li Zongjiu, who was a standard 4th-grade alchemist, it was naturally not a problem. Cough cough, your official position is not as high as his. He is a standard 3rd-grade alchemist of the Imperial Court. Kuan Erasure could not help but step forward and say in a low voice. Is that so? Li Zongjiu was also a little surprised. It turned out that his token was useless. You intentionally hurt the deputy commander of the Right Army of the Imperial Guards and injured more than 20 of my guards. Today, even if you are an Imperial alchemist, you can forget about leaving unscathed. Xiao Han said indifferently. However, his aura was gradually becoming colder. He stared at Li Zongjiu in front of him and slowly drew out the Sky Destroyer beside him. This sword was the Sky Destroyer that came from Sky Sword Pavilion. The aura of a Yuan King elite was gradually released from Xiao Han's body. Xiao Han's intuition told him that there was definitely something wrong with this kid in front of him. Today, he would definitely find out something about Li Zongjiu. However, this kid just had to bump into him. If he did not take care of him, then he would not be able to live up to his position as the commander of the Imperial Guards. Xiao Han was so angry that even Su Hong did not dare to step forward to stop him. Su Hong could not understand why Li Zongjiu would do this. Chapter 663. He would be asking for trouble if he offended Xiao Han at such a time. Xiao Han jumped down from the armored rhinoceros he was sitting on. He held the Sky Destroyer in his hand and condensed an extremely sharp sword edge. Such sword intent far surpassed that of the Southwest Sword Sect back then. After all, the Southwest Sword Grandmaster was only at the Sword Grandmaster realm. Although he was about to enter the Yuan Monarch realm, he had not yet reached it. However, Xiao Han was a grade 5 Yuan Monarch realm expert. Although he was not considered a top expert in the palace, he had retired from the battlefield and fought everywhere. His body was stained with blood, which made Xiao Han's combat strength quite terrifying. In the palace, the Imperial Guard was only a relative decoration. If a true expert were to invade, there would naturally be an expert from the palace to deal with it. At that time, the Imperial Guard would at most be able to set up a formation. There were also similar situations. For example, if Emperor Xingyan wanted to visit somewhere, the Imperial Guards would be in charge of clearing the way and guarding the place. That was one of the duties of the Emperor. However, Xiao Han had to have his own strength and standards to be able to become the commander of the Imperial Guards. Now that he was facing Li Zongjiu, he did not hesitate to raise his sword and charge out. Li Zongjiu did not show the slightest bit of fear. He seemed to be prepared to stay where he was and wait for Xiao Han to attack. Just as Xiao Han was about to attack, a dignified voice rang out. Stop! Murong Yunjan stepped forward. A dignified commander of the Imperial Guards was actually exchanging blows with an Imperial alchemist in public. How ridiculous was this? Li Zongjiu did not know how to retreat. Could it be that a dignified commander of the Imperial Guards actually wanted to arrest this Imperial alchemist and bring him to justice? Previously, it did not matter if he had beaten up some small soldiers. Now that Li Zongjiu was about to fight with Xiao Han, it would be extremely unwise for either side to suffer losses. Xiao Han was originally filled with anger and was ready to kill anyone who stood in his way. After all, he was still in a fit of anger. But now, he realized that the person who had stepped forward to mediate the fight was actually Prince Murong. Even if Xiao Han had 10 heads, he still wouldn't dare to go against Murong Yunjan. That was a prince of the Shengyan dynasty, and he was just a subject. Even if he was enraged, he had to suppress the anger in his heart. This subject didn't know that Your Highness was here. Please forgive me for disturbing Your Highness. Xiao Han immediately knelt down on one knee before Murong Yunjan. The surrounding Imperial Guards also knelt down. Li Zongjiu and the others did not need to perform the etiquette of an emperor and his subjects because Emperor Xingyan cherished and respected talents. Therefore, this move was very popular. After all, some people who were confident in their strength were inevitably arrogant and did not seek power. In the past, people wanted to use their power to oppress others. I am the emperor of a dynasty, so what if I ask you to kneel? Then, for some unknown reason, the dynasty was destroyed just like that. Currently, the Saint Flame Empire was unique and had started the tradition of respecting talents. Therefore, these people were highly valued by the Saint Flame Empire. Therefore, they did not dare to be disrespectful to the Saint Flame Empire. If there was anyone who did not respect the Saint Flame Empire, they would have already been killed. When you are given face, you have to accept it. You can't really take him seriously. However, Xiao Han was part of the system. Naturally, he had to kneel when he saw Prince Murong. The Imperial Guards were the same. Li Zongjiu, Commander Xiao Han is an old general of the dynasty. Give me some face and let this matter pass. Prince Murong said in a deep voice. As he spoke, Prince Murong came in front of Li Zongjiu and whispered again. There are so many people here. You won't embarrass me, right? Other people couldn't hear it, but Lan Kuan, who was at the side, heard it clearly. This was too fierce. Even Prince Murong had personally come to ask Li Zongjiu to give him face. In the imperial city, who else could do this? He was a prince of the Shengyan dynasty. Could it be that he needed others to give him face? However, Murong Yunjan was worried that Li Zongjiu would not give him face. Therefore, he whispered to him as a greeting. After seeing that Li Zongjiu did not do anything excessive, Murong Yunjan turned to look at Xiao Han. General Xiao Han, this is the 10,000 T manor. How can you rashly bring your troops here? Although Murong Yunjan appeared to be angry, he was actually protecting Xiao Han. Li Zongjiu did not have the slightest restraint when he made his move. If Murong Yunjan did not stop him in time, perhaps Li Zongjiu would have directly crippled Xiao Han's old bones. For someone with Li Zongjiu's personality, it was not impossible. Xiao Han stood up and put away the Sky Destroyer sword. He forcefully sucked in a few breaths of cold air before he managed to suppress the murderous intent in his heart. He thought to himself that if Prince Murong had not stopped him today, he would have made Li Zongjiu pay a painful price. How dare he use such a method to humiliate his imperial guards? Xiao Han would definitely not let Li Zongjiu off. This official was rash. This official will take his leave now. Xiao Han cupped his hands and said to Murong Yunjan. Although he said goodbye, Xiao Han's scarlet eyes were still fixed on Li Zongjiu. At this moment, Xiao Han was certain that the death of his son, Xiao Tian's, was related to this person in front of him. However, he could not do anything in front of Murong Yunjan. What he said before was right. This was the 10,000 T manor and not some other place. He could not act rashly. Withdraw. Xiao Han waved his hand and took the imperial guards away. Murong Yunzhan did not know that Xiao Han was so angry because of his son's death. If not, Xiao Han, as an old general of the imperial court, would definitely not be so rash and do such a thing. I've already helped you twice today. Murong Yunzhan walked in front of Li Zongjiu and left after saying those words. This made Li Zongjiu feel a little baffled. Of course, the baffling thing was Murong Yunzhan's attitude. Was this guy trying to curry favor with him, or was he trying to deal with him? Although Li Zongjiu did not care about many things and enemies, he still cared about Murong Yunzhan. Murong Yunzhan was the only person he cared about. Li Zongjiu remembered that in the future, Murong Yunzhan seemed to have done something incredible. If he remembered correctly, he had carved out a large piece of the Shenyan dynasty's territory and declared himself king. In terms of nature, it was a completely different situation. This Murong Yunzhan had become completely independent and established his own title. He was no longer a small prince, but a true king. As for how he did it, Li Zongjiu could not remember clearly. In any case, this kingdom would not take long. Because of Murong Yunzhan's loss, it would not take long for the Shenyan dynasty to recover. Chapter 664. Do you want me to bring that lass and hide for a while? Kuan Erishur said in a deep voice. It was obvious that these people were watching them. If Su Sha didn't take the initiative to report them, then the only one they had to be careful of was the maid, Xiao Dai. If they hid, then the other party wouldn't be able to find them. However, there was a certain degree of danger in doing so. If the other party couldn't find Xiao Dai, they might use other methods to force Xiao Dai to appear. For example, kidnapping Xiao Dai's parents and family. No need. I've said it before. If we want revenge, then we have to cut the weeds and dig up the roots. Li Zongjiu shook his head and said. The real way to cut the weeds and dig up the roots wasn't to kill those who knew about it, but to kill those who had the ability to fight back. This was the real way to cut the weeds and dig up the roots. Kuan Erishur knew that Li Zongjiu wasn't joking. However, the other party was after all the commander of the Imperial Guards. His strength wasn't ordinary. I'll go with you. In the face of such danger, Kuan Erishur, as a follower, naturally had to rush to the front. Kuan Erishur wasn't a woman or a child who needed others to protect him at all times. For Kuan Erishur, since he recognized Li Zongjiu as his boss, then of course, he would face difficulties together with him. Otherwise, he wouldn't be called a brother. Li Zongjiu nodded his head. It was a little boring to kill all by himself. Moreover, Kuan Arashi's strength still needed to be polished. If he didn't experience the wind, frost, rain, and snow, then how could he grow? Kuan Erishur must grow in the wind and rain of blood. In the future, he would be able to stop the crisis of Kuan Castle. In fact, Li Zongjiu was also paving the way for the future. The tragic fate of Kuan Castle depended on whether Kuan Erishur could reverse it. Li Zongjiu did not want to interfere too much. The two of you are really crazy. How can you be so high profile? After this is over, I will bring you out from the back of the mountain. These people might be hiding somewhere, waiting for you to appear and ambush you. Su Sha said with great concern. Because in Su Sha's heart, she had already regarded Li Zongjiu as her idol. Moreover, the experience between them made them friends. Su Sha didn't want Li Zongjiu to be caught by those people. As for Xiao Tian's death, it was only because he deserved to die. Yes. Have you packed my cakes? Li Zongjiu asked. Su Sha immediately rolled her eyes. At this time, he was still thinking about food. Although she disliked it in her heart, she still ordered people to prepare the food and gave it to Li Zongjiu. Although the lucky draw segment was interrupted, it still continued. However, this thing was not unexpected. The final winner was actually Murong Yunzhan. Damn, I knew it. It must be predetermined. This kind of prize, it's better not to draw. Sigh, I am now completely disappointed in the Heavenly Pill Pavilion. Li Zongjiu and Kuan Erishur threw the invitation letter in their hands to the ground. Although everyone knew that the first prize was predetermined, no one dared to say it out loud. The two of them were really too young. However, because of their previous actions, coupled with Murong Yunzhan's strange attitude, Li Zongjiu did not blame him. He acted as if he did not hear anything and received the 6th grade elixir, Xianyang grass, as usual. It's actually Xianyang grass. This thing's power is huge. It's not something that ordinary people can enjoy. Li Zongjiu said softly. Su Sha also secretly gave Li Zongjiu a map. I still have other things to do. This is the route. In a while, you guys can take advantage of the chaos and leave. No one will pay attention to you guys. After Su Sha warned them, she glanced at Li Zongjiu and Kuan Erishur, then turned around and went to do her own things. Kuan Erishur looked at the leaving Su Sha and nudged Li Zongjiu's shoulder. Boss, this girl seems to be interested in you. Kuan Erishur said. However, Li Zongjiu only glanced at Kuan Erishur indifferently. There are many people who are interested in me. Such shamelessness and such mysterious confidence made Kuan Erishur roll his eyes. You really took a compliment seriously. If you take it seriously, it will be hard to recognize your true self. Li Zongjiu, I advise you to release the Elder of Spirit Valley sect before dawn tomorrow. Otherwise, don't blame us for being ruthless. Elder Tsang Chu had already arrived in front of Li Zongjiu and gave him an ultimatum. If he could not achieve it, then the final decision would be to use force. How much was the price I quoted before? 100 upper-grade primordial stones, right? Didn't you tell this old man? Li Zongjiu looked at the Nantian Pill King beside Tsang Chu. Now the price has increased to 1,000 upper-grade primordial stones. If there is a next time, the price will depend on my mood. In fact, I advise you to pay as soon as possible. Otherwise, if you make everyone unhappy in the end, you will have to bear the consequences. Listening to Li Zongjiu's tone, it seemed that he was doing it for their own good. Such impudence was an insult to Tsang Chu. You are just a little brat, how dare you negotiate with me, Tsang Chu? 1,000 upper-grade primordial stones. You don't even know the value of primordial stones. Do you think you can take it out just because you said so? You are playing with fire. I, Tsang Chu, will wait for your consequences. Tsang Chu said coldly, but there was a hint of complacency in his eyes. At the very least, Li Zongjiu had stayed in Myriad Tea Villa all night and did not leave. It was estimated that the Black Mountain Sword King had already succeeded. Based on Tsang Chu's understanding of the Black Mountain Sword King, there was basically nothing that the Black Mountain Sword King could not do. Even if it was a mountain of swords or a sea of flames, he could easily explore it. It was a piece of cake for the Black Mountain Sword King to go to this small house and rescue the people inside. After rescuing Elder Lu Wenshan, he could use force to destroy Li Zongjiu. In addition, there were many voices outside. In fact, Li Zongjiu did not have any secret technique of the 9 revolving cosmos needle. The 9 revolving cosmos needle had already been transferred out. Continuing to waste time here would only be a waste of time. In addition, there were quite a lot of things happening recently. It was said that there was a vast ancient burial land in the north, and many forces were concentrating their energy on it. Otherwise, how could Li Zongjiu live so freely for so long? In the eyes of many people, Li Zongjiu was just a person who had obtained a chance to catch his breath in between the cracks. If Li Zongjiu were to be noticed by those behemoths, he would probably be crippled. Chapter 665. Tsang Chu naturally couldn't be bothered to continue arguing with Li Zongjiu. He turned around and left. He would first make a trip to the Purple Pill Academy to see how the Black Mountain Sword King's battle was going. If it was successful, then he could begin to deal with Li Zongjiu. After Tsang Chu left, Pei Si brought Shintu to Li Zongjiu. Seeing Pei Si walking over, Kun Erasure couldn't help but straighten his back. Previously, he was already disrespectful to Pei Si, and even to Pei Si's father. Kun Erasure might as well be ruthless in front of Pei Si. He continued to put on a fierce appearance. Li Zongjiu, I know that the item is in your hands. If you are interested in cooperating with my Changxing Pavilion, then send a paper crane to find me. I'll be waiting for you. Don't worry, our Changxing Pavilion has never been stingy. Pei Si waved his hand and Shin Tu, who was behind him, passed over a box. When the box was opened, there was a paper crane inside. However, it wasn't an ordinary paper crane. As long as one used yuan power to ignite it, the other side would receive the same signal. In fact, during the process of the paper crane being ignited, it could even communicate with each other. It was a small yuan tool, a functional type. After Pei Si finished speaking, he turned around and left very coldly. He didn't mention a word about what happened before. This kid is really good. He can endure so well. He will definitely become a big disaster in the future. Kun Erasure looked at Pei Si and couldn't help but say. The more patient a person was, the more successful he would be in the future. He's just a piece of trash. Disaster my ass. Li Zongjiu didn't put him in his eyes at all. If you like this thing, you can keep it. In his previous life, Li Zongjiu had seen all kinds of demons and encountered all kinds of enemies. Why would he care about such a small thing? Wait until you sit in your father's position, then talk to Li Zongjiu and talk business with Li Zongjiu. It was too early for Pei Si now. No, if I keep this thing, what if he can find me at any time? Kun Erasure also directly threw the box to the side. But after thinking about it, the box seemed to be pretty, so he directly poured the contents of the box on the ground and took the box away. As for the kite that was poured on the ground, it wasn't long before it was trampled into a pile of waste paper and directly swept into the trash can. Li Zongjiu and Kun Arashi's departure didn't attract much attention. However, there was a group of people who had been monitoring Li Zongjiu and the others' every move from the beginning. Now that Li Zongjiu and the others left the 10,000 T mountain villa, they immediately rushed to spread the news. Somewhere in the city, Xiao Han, who was dressed in martial attire, had already changed into a set of light clothes. There was also a tall and straight man standing beside her. This man was the deputy commander of the city guard corps, Guan Shifei. Old Guan, help me this time. I promise to recommend you to the third prince to be the next commander. Xiao Han said in a loud voice. His face was expressionless, but Guan Shifei's face already revealed a smile. According to Xiao Han's temper, he wouldn't easily make such a promise. Among the many generals of the Shengyan dynasty, Xiao Han's prestige was quite good. Although he had now retired from the front line, most of the important positions now were basically retired from the front line. With the support of Xiao Han and the third prince adding fuel to the fire, Guan Shifei would immediately become the best candidate to be the commander. Even in his dreams, he had never thought that such a good thing would happen. Guan Shifei was originally patrolling and training his soldiers. Then, he directly received a summons from Xiao Han. Immediately, Guan Shifei felt that his opportunity had come. He had been waiting for this opportunity. When he knew that Xiao Han was preparing to deal with an enemy, and that he was going to do it secretly in the city, he immediately beamed with joy. Wasn't this what he was best at? Immediately, he arranged the soldiers in formation. First, he ordered some people in official uniforms to block off the nearby roads. Other than that, the rest of the soldiers changed into casual clothes within the blockade. Anyway, this was his jurisdiction. As long as this matter was successful, it wouldn't be a problem for him to fabricate the story in the end. By the way, General Xiao, who are we going to deal with? Guan Shifei couldn't help but ask. Up until now, Xiao Han hadn't revealed any more information. However, with so many promises and conditions, the goal of this mission naturally wouldn't be simple. Li Zongjiu. Between the lines, there was a monstrous murderous aura. Xiao Han was certain that his son was killed by Li Zongjiu. Even if he wasn't, he must have had something to do with it. Now that things had come to this, Xiao Han didn't care what the reason was. The only thing he had to do was to kill his enemy with his own hands. Li Zongjiu. Guan Shifei's pupils shrank, but he didn't show it. His son, Guan Houyang, who was beside him, was even more furious. Between his teeth, there was a cold light. Li Zongjiu. I didn't expect it to be that guy. Today, I will definitely not let go of this opportunity. Guan Houyang had been wanting to kill Li Zongjiu for a long time. Originally, he wanted to deal with Wang Ding of the Tusk Battalion, however, later on, he heard that there was a strange disease that was directly contagious in the area under Wang Ding's jurisdiction. He was happy to see them destroy themselves and let them enjoy this strange infectious disease. Therefore, he didn't make a move for the time being. It wasn't easy for him to put this matter aside for a period of time. Now that he heard Li Zongjiu's name, Guan Houyang was about to lose his patience. General, that Li Zongjiu duo is walking towards us. Although they had Guan Shifei's troops as cover, this kind of thing had to be done far away from the main streets. Moreover, it was best to control the area in a remote area so that they could destroy the corpses without anyone noticing. Therefore, Xiao Han had ordered people to set up an ambush on the road. It would be best if they could directly lure Li Zongjiu over. However, they didn't expect that Li Zongjiu would actually walk directly towards them. This is the wild forest on the outskirts of the city. I was worried that this kid wouldn't come. I've already set up an inescapable net in this forest. Once that kid enters, he will definitely die. Guan Shifei said coldly. In order to deal with Li Zongjiu, they had directly set up most of their forces in this wild forest. There were hundreds of archers on the treetops and dozens of trenches underground. Once they took action, these people would truly be an inescapable net that would pounce on Li Zongjiu. Even if he had wings, he wouldn't be able to escape. Moreover, there were two experts, Guan Shifei and Xiao Han, here. Wouldn't it be a piece of cake to deal with Li Zongjiu? Did you bring your flying roar? Xiao Han asked. Chapter 667. After that, there were more than a dozen loud bangs on the ground. Then, a figure appeared, holding a chilling blade light in his hand. However, they were all blocked by Kun Erishur alone. When he attacked, Lan Kun didn't hold back because these people had all come to take their lives. In the dark night, the Kun winged spear in Kun Arashi's hand was like a deadly lightning. It kept flashing in the dark night, and every time it flashed, a row of figures would fall. Li Zongjiu calmly walked towards Xiao Han. The thunder-blade appeared in his hand. As the pinnacle of craftsmanship in the bright lightning craftsman workshop, losing this blade was like losing half of their life's work. In an instant, its power was greatly reduced. I'll kill you with my own hands. Xiao Han put away the grief and indignation in his heart and carefully put away the head. When he looked at Li Zongjiu, his cold eyes were filled with murderous intent. By now, Xiao Han had already calmed down the emotions in his heart. Anger would make people lose their minds. No matter what the situation was, it was necessary to maintain absolute calmness. The heaven-destroying sword appeared in his hand. The aura on Xiao Han's body was like a piece of thousand-year-old ice, and it was constantly releasing a terrifying chill toward Li Zongjiu. The grass under his feet was also covered with frost. However, when the chill rushed to Li Zongjiu's feet, it was easily blocked. General, I'll help you. Guan Shifei growled and unsheathed the long blade in his hand. Surprisingly, it was a powerful yuan item. The blade was flickering with raging flames. It was a powerful raging flame long saber. Since things had already come to this point, it was already too late for them to back down. He must help Xiao Han kill Li Zongjiu. This was the most important thing. Xiao Han ignored Guan Shifei. Now that he was facing Li Zongjiu, he must kill him. Cold light flying blade sword. The yuan force in his body circulated, and the heaven-destroying sword emitted a terrifying light. Under this light, Guan Shifei, who was standing behind him, could not help but take a few steps back. What a powerful sword aura! Although Guan Shifei was also a grade 1 yuan monarch, he simply couldn't get close to Xiao Han's aura. Instead, he was forced to retreat. As he retreated, Xiao Han's sword aura had already rushed in front of Li Zongjiu. As expected of someone who had experienced hundreds of battles. After being honed on the battlefield, his level of strength was indeed different. Just this ordinary sword strike alone was enough to make Li Zongjiu feel a sense of urgency. However, it was only a sliver. With a slight sway of his body, he dodged the attack. Then, Li Zongjiu slashed down with his thunder-blade. Boom! The surging blade aura rushed towards Xiao Han like 10,000 galloping horses. Xiao Han had not expected Li Zongjiu to be able to display such a domineering power. Xiao Han held the sword with both hands and slashed the blade aura apart. However, the lightning energy that permeated the air could not help but adhere to his body. It seemed to become a chaotic lightning bolt, which immediately made Xiao Han feel an immense pressure. The yuan force in his body vibrated, immediately suppressing the terrifying lightning energy. Suppress. Xiao Han held the sword with one hand and placed the other hand on his chest. Then, he made a few consecutive hand seals. Finally, the power was mixed in his hand and suddenly shot forward. Boom! Suddenly, a ray of icy light rushed out and swept towards Li Zongjiu. Wherever the light passed, a frost power would appear on the inside. When Sang Chu and the rest, who were watching the battle from a distance, saw this finger seal, their eyes were filled with astonishment. This frost finger is domineering and fast. That kid may not be able to dodge it. Sang Chu could not help but comment. However, before this frost finger could reach Li Zongjiu, it was burned to a crisp by a flame. One had to know that Li Zongjiu was protected by his primordial fire. It was impossible for ordinary frigid air to get close to him. Li Zongjiu's obsidian fire was so strong that it could easily break through Xiao Han's frigid ice. 1,000 feet frost sword art. The Sky Destroyer sword vibrated with frost energy. This move, frost energy destroying the heavens, was extremely terrifying in the eyes of anyone. It was as if there was a terrifying force in the sky that was attracted to it. The entire forest was filled with cold air. Even the movements of Lan Kuan's hands involuntarily paused for a moment. It was as if he was affected by this wisp of cold air. However, Lan Kuan had already broken through the defenses of over 100 people and seriously injured them on the ground. A portion of them had even died. He did not show any mercy. Since they were already enemies, there was no need for him to be polite. Li Zongjiu also raised the thunder beheading blade in his hand. He was more than 10 meters away from Xiao Han. As he slashed down, a shocking lightning blade aura blasted out. Boom! Xiao Han's sword aura and Li Zongjiu's lightning blade aura collided. In an instant, a terrifying wave of energy spread out. Boom! The energy that scattered in all directions directly shattered the trees in the surroundings. The thick and sturdy trees were shaken by the collision of the two forces. Some of the weaker soldiers were directly sent flying. With a plop, they rolled on the ground and fell to the ground. Father. Guan Houyang was shielded behind Guan Shifei. Looking at the situation in front of him that was filled with dust, coupled with the wave of energy from before, if Guan Shifei had not blocked in front of him, Guan Houyang would have been sent flying and knocked unconscious on the ground. The current situation made Guan Houyang a little nervous. He had never imagined that Li Zongjiu would be able to fight Xiao Han to a standstill. Shoo, be careful. Guan Shifei could not help but say. When he looked again, he could vaguely see a figure standing in the fog. When he saw the figure, a smile appeared on Guan Shifei's face. This was because the figure standing in front of him was Xiao Han. However, in the next moment, Guan Shifei's smile froze. A cold light flashed past, and the head of the standing figure was chopped off and sent flying. Bang! Blood gushed out from the neck like a fountain. What? Guan Shifei's eyes widened when he saw this scene. The dust dispersed, and the head that was sent flying fell at Guan Shifei's feet. Xiao Han's ferocious eyes were staring at Guan Shifei. Son, run. Guan Shifei's first reaction was to tell Guan Houyang to leave this place as soon as possible. At the same time, he slapped Guan Houyang, who had not yet reacted, and sent him flying. Swoosh! Li Zongjiu's thunder/blade followed. Just as Guan Houyang's body was sent flying, he was split in half. He watched helplessly as his son was split into two halves in midair. Guan Shifei's heart was already blank. He could not believe his eyes. It was as if time had stopped at this moment. Chapter 668. Guan Shifei turned his head slightly, intending to look for Li Zongjiu to reason with him. However, when he turned his head, he saw a cold light flashing towards his head. Bang! Another headless corpse fell to the ground. After the head rolled away, fresh blood gushed out like a fountain. Li Zongjiu sheathed his sword and stood up. He looked around. Many people had already seen the scene. They saw Guan Shifei and Guan Houyang die under Li Zongjiu's sword in an instant. When they saw this scene, they were all stunned. They could not believe what they had just seen. At this moment, their commander was dead. Moreover, they were all traveling in plain clothes. They were not carrying out official duties at all. Even the two flying roars that were in preparation did not have time to be deployed. After killing half of them, these people were preparing to escape. However, at this moment, a group of armored soldiers suddenly appeared from all directions. He directly captured all those people who were about to escape. Take down all these people who are plotting a rebellion. Wang Ding's figure appeared. When he saw this scene, he could not help but smile. The light of his sword in the dark night was particularly bright. Sir, I am also a city guard. I have a waste token. How dare you impersonate a city guard? Execute them. Wang Ding directly slashed out with his sword, killing all the people who wanted to show their identity. When these people saw this, they panicked and hurriedly threw down the weapons in their hands. They did not dare to resist anymore. Wang Ding was the battalion commander of the Tusk Battalion. This time, under the command of Li Zongjiu, he seemed to have made a breakthrough in this strange case. These people in front of him were obviously plotting a rebellion. If they had not discovered it early, it would have led to a disaster. As for the evidence of the rebellion, it wasn't difficult to sort it out. Previously, he had already received Li Zongjiu's report, so he quickly rushed over. When he arrived, he directly captured some of the deputy battalion commanders of the other battalions. With so many people gathered here and dressed in plain clothes, if this wasn't treason, then what else could it be? Just from this point alone, it was already a capital offense. As the deputy commander of the army, he actually allowed his subordinates to disguise themselves and then carry out the activities of the majority of the people. It was very difficult to explain and get rid of him. This time, Wang Ding also directly captured these people. At the same time, he also obtained 2 flying roars. Good boy, so you want to sell firearms. When Wang Ding saw the 2 flying roars, an idea had already formed in his mind. As for Li Zongjiu and Kun Erishur, naturally, they acted as if they did not see anything. When there were so many people, their figures quietly retreated. The people who were watching this scene from afar all had their mouths agape. Li Zongjiu is really courageous, Pei Si thought to himself. Just as Pei Si was surprised by Li Zongjiu's courage, he inexplicably felt a trace of threat. When he turned around, he saw an additional figure behind him. Li Zongjiu was also looking at Pei Si very calmly. The thunder-slashing blade in his hand was also covered in a trace of blood. Shen Tu, who was following beside him, could not help but stand up. What are you trying to do? Shen Tu was obviously very nervous. They had been observing everything in front of them in secret and had been very careful to hide their presence. However, Li Zongjiu was able to find them so accurately. This clearly meant that they had been discovered by Li Zongjiu long ago. At this moment, he had come rashly. There must be a reason behind it. Even Pei Si could not help but feel nervous. At this moment, when he saw Li Zongjiu so close to him, he could not understand what Li Zongjiu wanted to do. You're called Pei Si, right? In fact, I didn't want to kill you, but there's no other way. Who asked you to bump into me? Li Zongjiu said. Pei Si and Shen Tu were instantly shocked. Could it be that Li Zongjiu was really going to kill them? In the blink of an eye. Li Zongjiu's hand was already stretched out like the scythe of the Grim Reaper, grabbing Pei Si's and Shen Tu's necks. Die! Crack! Crack! Their necks were instantly broken. In front of Li Zongjiu, they were like two helpless chickens. Previously, Pei Si was also thinking about how he should deal with Li Zongjiu. In Pei Si's opinion, with his strength, dealing with Li Zongjiu would not be difficult. Although Li Zongjiu's strength might be able to resist, in front of Pei Si, he would only be defeated. However, when the real thing happened, Pei Si realized how terrifying the gap between him and Li Zongjiu was. At the moment when Pei Si's neck was broken, he did not even have time to react before Li Zongjiu took away his life. The dignified young pavilion master of Changxing Pavilion was killed in the wilderness just like that. After casually throwing the two corpses on the ground, Li Zongjiu stood on the treetop and looked down. There was not the slightest fluctuation in his eyes. After dealing with these two people, he left with peace of mind. Hey, where did you go just now? When Kun Erishur saw Li Zongjiu appear, he was curious. When he saw Wang Ding and the others appear, he thought that this matter was going to be blown out of proportion. However, after receiving Li Zongjiu's notice, he quickly retreated since these people were on his side. However, Li Zongjiu's footsteps were slightly slower. I dealt with some matters. Li Zongjiu said indifferently. Kun Erishur did not ask about the details. What happened tonight? It's all settled. Go back and refine the fire seed. Master it as soon as possible. At the Dark Horse Elixir gathering, it will be easy. Li Zongjiu said. In this Dark Horse pill meeting, there were a group of extremely vicious people. These unorthodox alchemists would do anything in order to win. Don't worry. Kun Erishur said. Kun Erishur was also very fond of the residual sun fire. He could not wait to refine it. After that, Li Zongjiu left. The two corpses were placed on the ground quietly. Even their eyes were wide open, as if they died with grievances. Two figures emerged from the darkness and arrived in front of the two corpses. What happened? Isn't this Pei Si from Changxing Pavilion? When Sang Chu saw this scene, his heart skipped a beat. This Pei Si brat was actually killed by someone. Not good. After seeing this scene, South Heaven Elixir King's mind went blank. He instantly realized that something was wrong. This was because their aura had been left behind at the scene. Who is it? Another group of experts came. These people were wearing secret armor and had a purple gold saber at their waist. Top secret guards. Chapter 669. On the waists of these top secret guards was a plate with the word secret written on it. In addition, the top secret guards also wore masks on their faces. The masks were airtight. Outsiders couldn't see the secret guards' faces, but the secret guards could see their faces through the masks. When the secret guards arrived, both of them were shocked. Even Sang Chu and Nantian Pill King were taken aback. They could not help but become vigilant. One should know that these secret guards were not that simple. As a secret troop specially formed by the Saint Flame dynasty, their purpose was to help the Saint Flame dynasty deal with some difficult and complicated cases. The appearance of the three secret guards had already made Sang Chu and Nantian Pil King feel pressured. Moreover, the rising price and the two corpses on the ground made them unable to explain themselves. The death of these two people has nothing to do with us, Sang Chu said indifferently. So what if you're the secret guards? I'm the elder of the Spirit Valley sect. Without solid evidence, even if you're the secret guards, you won't be able to capture me. Whether it's true or not, you'll know once you come with us, one of the secret guards said indifferently. Sang Chu's eyes were filled with coldness after hearing the guard's words. Even if you're the secret guards, you won't be able to take me away. I'm the elder of the Spirit Valley sect, Sang Chu said confidently. At the same time, he was surprised that these people came so quickly. Moreover, they came at this time. These secret guards really knew how to cause trouble. Sang Chu himself felt that it was quite troublesome. However, he was the elder of the Spirit Valley sect after all. He was also a 6th grade alchemist. His aura was not weak at all. If it was an ordinary person in front of these secret guards, they would have already admitted defeat. Even Nantian Dan Wang, who was behind him, did not have the intention to resist. After all, this matter had nothing to do with him. He would know after a little investigation. However, it was impossible for Sang Chu to follow these top secret guards. Otherwise, if Sang Chu's reputation were to spread, everyone in the world would laugh at Sang Chu for being captured by these top secret guards. If you refuse to cooperate, then don't blame us for offending you. As he spoke, the top secret guard slowly drew out the long saber in his hand. 3 pairs of incorporeal eyes stared at Sang Chu and landed on his body. With just the two of you, you want to take me down? Sang Chu was also a stubborn person. As an elder of Spirit Valley sect, he was highly respected within the sect. If he was captured by these secret guards, wouldn't he become a prisoner? This made Sang Chu quite resistant in his heart. Capture. Under the command of the top secret guard, the 3 of them drew their blades simultaneously. The dazzling blade energy was like a cage that descended from the sky, instantly suppressing Sang Chu who was in front of them. Boom! Sang Chu's body also released terrifying flames to fight against the 3 golden saber cheese in front of him. South Heaven Elixir King was shocked when he saw the 3 of them fighting. What should he do now? Everyone, please calm down. Please stop. Let's talk things over, South Heaven Elixir King said. However, Nantian Dan King's words were useless in front of these 4 people. No one even paid attention to him. Nantian Dan King was the king of this region, but today, he deeply felt that his status was so low that no one bothered to pay attention to him. After a fierce battle, Sang Chu also took the time to release a signal and quickly flew towards the sky. Boom! Hey Shan, come and save me! Sang Chu roared to the sky. After all, he was only an alchemist. Under the siege of the 3 top secret guards who were also Yuan monarchs, he still showed signs of defeat. This was because the 3 top secret guards showed mercy. After all, Sang Chu's strength was not simple. If he wanted to fight to the death, he had to be careful. These top secret guards were best at exhausting the enemy first. Only in this way could they steadily take down the enemy and successfully complete the task. This was also the accumulation of years of experience. However, there was no response to Sang Chu's distress signal. At this moment, the Black Mountain Sword King, who was hiding in an inn in the city, was also doing his best to heal his injuries. He did not even dare to stay in a luxurious inn. It was just a very ordinary inn. And just as the Black Mountain Sword King was healing himself, he saw this distress signal. The corners of the Black Mountain Sword King's mouth suddenly curved into a bitter smile. Old Song, it's not that I don't want to save you, but I can't even save myself." The moment the Black Mountain Sword King was distracted, he spat out a mouthful of blood onto the bed. He looked extremely miserable. Dou Ling, who had entered a frenzied state, seemed to like killing and torturing her opponents very much. Therefore, the Black Mountain Sword King was subjected to the brutal attacks of his opponent. This brutal attack caused the Black Mountain Sword King to suffer a considerable amount of pain. Now, his body was in a mess. If he did not recuperate as soon as possible, he would die. If that was the case, then his cultivation would most likely be crippled. Therefore, when the Black Mountain Sword King saw the distress signal from Tsang Chu, he could only pretend that he did not see it. "In any case, you'd better pray for yourself." The Black Mountain Sword King waved his hand and closed the window. Then, he continued to immerse himself in the recovery of his injuries. Tsang Chu, who did not get a response, finally fell to the ground with a bang under the attack of the 5 top secret guards. "Please come with us." Chapter 670. 10,000 Tea Villa. Xiao Dai was also very nervous in this environment. She finally got through this situation safely. When she saw the group of people rushing in, Xiao Dai's heart was also quite nervous. She was afraid that she would be caught by these people if she was not careful. If that happened, the consequences would be really unimaginable. However, Li Zongjiu stepped forward bravely and directly beat these people away. This was also very touching for Xiao Dai. However, Zhuangying quickly brought Xiao Dai over. After all, in this 10,000 tea villa, it was not easy to escape from Zhuangying's eyes. What happened tonight had already made Zhuangying quite frightened. Just tonight in this 10,000 tea villa, there were already several murder cases. Just the death of Xiao Tiance alone was enough to give Zhuangying a headache. "Tell me the truth. What is going on?" Zhuangying said faintly. He did not torture Xiao Dai. As the master of this manor, he still had this bit of dignity. However, Xiao Dai looked very nervous. Facing Zhuangying's interrogation, Xiao Dai also told him some things. However, this was only a part of the story. Xiao Tiance tried to do something to her. Then, she blacked out. She did not know what happened after that until she woke up. These words were directly said by Su Sha to Xiao Dai before she woke up. In order to avoid being exposed in the future, it would be more convincing. Zhuangying naturally knew that this matter was not so simple. However, he also knew that Xiao Dai was just a victim in this whole matter. After all, she was a member of his villa. Therefore, Zhuangying did not make things difficult for her. "You can leave first." Zhuangying rubbed his forehead. This matter was complicated and confusing. Just as Zhuangying was deep in thought, someone hurriedly came to report. The appearance of these major events caused Zhuangying's head to feel as though it was about to explode. "What? You said that Xiao Han is dead? Smuggling firearms?" He was caught red-handed by the city guards. The young master of the Pavilion of Longevity, Pei Si, and his guards were killed as well. The murderer is Elder Tsang Chu of Spirit Valley sect. "Yes, master. Tsang Chu and Pil King Nantian have been taken away by the secret guards." The scout below reported. Even Zhuangying himself was quite shocked. How could this be? Even the top secret imperial bodyguards have been mobilized. Fuck. The corner of Zhuangying's mouth twitched. Fortunately, this matter didn't happen in his 10,000 tea villa. If it happened in his 10,000 tea villa, he would be in big trouble. If he couldn't explain it clearly, everything would be over. Even though Zhuangying had no idea what was going on right now. However, Zhuangying's intuition told him that the mastermind behind all of this was definitely not simple. Even the top secret bodyguard was part of the plan. Could it be that the battle between the princes has escalated to such a level? Even the top secret guards have been dispatched. The world is about to change. Zhuang Ying immediately announced that he wasn't feeling well and needed more rest. He wouldn't be receiving any guests in the 10,000 tea villa. Li Zongjiu and Kuan Erisher returned to their own places safe and sound. Kuan Erisher returned to the Heavenly Star Medicine Mansion to refine the fire seed in his hand. After all, Lan Kuan didn't have his own house. The main reason was that he couldn't afford it. Or it could be said that Lan Kuan's needs in this aspect weren't that great. If he really needed it, he could be ruthless enough to buy a small thatched hut. Although Li Zongjiu had guessed in his heart that someone would definitely launch a sneak attack on the manor tonight, he had directly set up the Yuan rune formation. However, when Li Zongjiu returned to the manor, he immediately discovered that the manor had been destroyed to the point where it was unbearable to look at. It was as though all that was missing was the final push to directly demolish and rebuild it. What's going on? Did the army invade? Li Zongjiu walked in. Du Lianyi was taking care of the Howling Moon Wolf King. Beside her, Ying Hu was sitting on the ground, trying his best to recover from his injuries. The scene was also a mess. It seemed like a battle of the century had happened. "Young master, you're back," Du Lianyi said in surprise. She had killed her enemy tonight. Du Lianyi felt like she had come back from the dead. She didn't dare to imagine that this day would come so quickly. However, the consequences were very serious. Du Lianyi was also worried that Li Zongjiu and Ying Hu wouldn't be able to leave the 10,000 tea villa safely. If Xiao Tian's father came to cause trouble, it would be very dangerous. As the commander of the Imperial Guards, his strength was already terrifyingly strong. Fortunately, Li Zongjiu returned safe and sound. "Yes, I'm back." "Move aside." Li Zongjiu came to the front of the Howling Moon Wolf King and injected Yuan energy into its body. It immediately helped the Howling Moon Wolf King to recover its strength. "It's just a little shock. It's not a big deal." However, when he checked the condition of Ying Hu's body, Li Zongjiu's face darkened. He frowned deeply. Young master. You're back." Ying Hu opened its eyes and looked at Li Zongjiu. When it spoke, a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of its mouth. "Don't move. The Yuan bead in your body is broken. It's good that you're able to hold on until now." Li Zongjiu didn't say anything and sat down cross-legged. Beside him, Dou Ling's face also gradually darkened. For those who cultivated Yuan power, a broken Yuan pearl was almost a fatal injury. Following the breaking of the Yuan pearl, their lifetime of cultivation would gradually dissipate. It would flow away bit by bit, and one wouldn't even have the means to stop it. Dou Ling also knew that Ying Hu's situation wasn't optimistic. However, no one could cure the broken Yuan bead. "Young master. Don't waste your energy, shut up," Li Zongjiu said indifferently. Both of his palms suddenly slapped on Ying Hu's back. Powerful Yuan energy instantly penetrated and poured into it. Obsidian fire. The obsidian fire instantly appeared on Ying Hu's Yuan bead. The terrifying burning power caused the shadow fox to feel great pain. Hiss. Ying Hu's entire body seemed to be twitching. You want to refine his Yuan bead?" Chapter 671. Dou Ling was shocked when she saw this. She found Li Zongjiu's actions unbelievable. Could it be that Li Zongjiu was such an evil person? He had personally nurtured the shadow fox so that he could take advantage of the moment when the shadow fox origin bead shattered and devour the origin bead of the shadow fox. If that was the case, he was truly evil. Dou Ling must be a person who knew how to use Yuan Qi to prevent such a thing from happening. However, Li Zongjiu did not pay attention to Dou Ling. He continued to incinerate the shadow fox's body with the obsidian fire. Boom! The obsidian fire general took a long time to refine the shadow fox's origin bead. It was an extremely strenuous process. Dou Ling originally thought that Li Zongjiu was up to something evil. However, when she saw Li Zongjiu's serious expression and the fact that Li Zongjiu was using even more yuan qi to protect the shadow fox's body during the refining process, she did not want the shadow fox to suffer too much pain. What's going on? Dou Ling's gaze fell on the shadow fox's body. Unlike its previous weak aura, the shadow fox's aura was gradually recovering. Previously, the shadow fox was like a deflating balloon that was riddled with holes. Now, the shadow fox was like a yuan qi ball that was rapidly gathering energy. At this moment, the shadow fox's strength was rapidly gathering. Seeing this scene, Dou Ling was even more shocked. Just a moment ago, this shadow fox was already on the verge of death. However, it was pulled back from the brink of death. This was simply a miracle. Oh my God, that, Dou Ling opened her mouth in shock. The shadow fox, which was on the verge of death, opened its eyes once again. The light in its eyes was unprecedentedly strong. Go and break through. Li Zongjiu withdrew his hand. At this moment, the yuan bead within the shadow fox's body was filled with the power of the black glorious fire and was continuously gathering energy. When Yinghu opened his eyes again, he was clearly in an extremely excited state. Thank you, young master. Yinghu immediately thanked Li Zongjiu, but quickly ran away. Just as Li Zongjiu had said, Yinghu needed to enter the state of breakthrough immediately. Otherwise, this feeling would quickly pass. At that time, Yinghu would lose more than he gained. It was not easy for him to accumulate so much power, which made Yinghu feel quite shocked. In addition to the excitement in his heart, he also immediately threw himself into this nervous state of cultivation. Li Zongjiu sat cross-legged on the spot. After consuming an elixir, he immediately began to recover his yuan power. Even his mental energy was greatly depleted. This action seemed simple, but if one did not have 1,000 years of cultivation, one would not dare to do it. This was because the slightest carelessness could easily burn a person to death. But when had he ever suffered such humiliation, being beaten to the point of fleeing in a sorry state? This was a deep hatred, so he must take revenge. Blood for blood. If you hurt me once, I will kill your whole family. Seeing that his bed was already soaked in his own blood, the hatred and murderous intent in his heart became even denser. I'm afraid you won't have that chance. Li Zongjiu said indifferently as he rubbed his fingernails. His figure appeared from the corner of the room. Chapter 672. Li Zongjiu's voice suddenly came from the room. The Black Mountain Sword King was immediately horrified. The Black Mountain Sword King immediately grabbed his long sword and stared at the figure in front of him. Who are you? How dare you plot against this Sword King? The Black Mountain Sword King suddenly said in a cold voice. Although he was now in a state of injury, he was still a Sword King. His momentum was still there, extremely strong. He stared at the person in front of him. When he saw Li Zongjiu's appearance, the Black Mountain Sword King was a little surprised, because the person who came was younger than he imagined. He was clearly a child. These days, even children were so arrogant. Obviously, the Black Mountain Sword King was also surprised by this scene. Although he was now in a state of injury, it was not a simple matter to take his head. There was no need to send a child. The Black Mountain Sword King mistakenly thought that the person in front of him should be sent by his former enemies. Strong as the Black Mountain Sword King, he also had his own enemies, and the strength of his enemies should not be underestimated. Your mouth is quite smelly. Li Zongjiu's fingernails were a little longer recently, and he took the time to sharpen them. He looked at the Black Mountain Sword King in front of him. Are you the one who broke into my manor? Li Zongjiu made the final confirmation. If he accidentally killed the wrong person, wouldn't it be awkward? So it was better to clarify the situation first. Your manor. The Black Mountain Sword King was stunned. Where did this guy come from? He was still trying to guess Li Zongjiu's identity. If he had broken into the manor, the only thing the Black Mountain Sword King could recall was the terrifying scene from last night. You are that Li Zongjiu. The Black Mountain Sword King looked at Li Zongjiu. The Black Mountain Sword King was surprised by how Yi Shuwen found him. However, He Kuai also showed a smile. Since you took the initiative to come to me, you can't blame me. My luck is too good. The Black Mountain Sword King laughed coldly. The sword in the Black Mountain Sword King's hand trembled. At this moment, his confidence was greatly boosted. What else was there to say? First, he had to take Li Zongjiu's head. Then, he would gather his men and destroy White Deer Manor. The Black Mountain Sword King also carefully thought about the previous matter. Everything was because of that damned Lu Wenshan. If he had left earlier, then there wouldn't have been any later matters. Now he was in such a state, and even consumed a thunder talisman to escape. For the Black Mountain Sword King, this was an extremely disadvantageous situation. The Black Mountain Sword King's long sword moved, immediately releasing a terrifying aura, directly chopping towards Li Zongjiu's head. The sharp sword qi seemed to have been honed in the sea, so it could have such a terrifying sword qi at this moment. Boom! The sword qi suddenly set off a fierce wind. It quickly rushed in front of Li Zongjiu, and then stopped. Whoosh! It seemed that the fierce wind had turned into nothingness at this moment. Li Zongjiu stood quietly, without moving. Between his two fingers was the opponent's long sword. Li Zongjiu didn't seem to use the slightest strength, but at this moment, the Black Mountain Sword King felt that Li Zongjiu's two fingers were like two mountains, tightly clamping his sword. In the world, there was a person with such strength. What exactly were Li Zongjiu's fingers made of? Obviously, the Black Mountain Sword King was extremely shocked, but in the next moment, the Black Mountain Sword King also gave up the sword in his hand, and the power between his palms instantly condensed together. Immediately, the Black Mountain Sword King's palms turned pitch black. Black palm. Li Zongjiu raised his hand and also struck out a palm, but the Black Mountain Sword King could be said to be very confident in his palm technique. There was also a sinister look on his face. The Black Mountain Sword King had always only shown his sword technique in front of others, but if he showed his palm technique, then he would definitely take the opponent's life. Even when facing the terrifying brute tribe woman last night, the Black Mountain Sword King did not show this move. First, because there was no chance, and second, under such circumstances, he might not be able to hurt her even if he used it. In the Black Mountain Sword King's mind, he had already classified Do Ling, as a brute tribe woman. Otherwise, how could a normal human girl have such monstrous strength? This was beyond the scope of Yuan power, because in terms of the strength of Yuan power, the Black Mountain Sword King could more or less break free, but the other party's monstrous strength directly restrained the Black Mountain Sword King's Yuan power. This caused such a situation to occur. But now, in the face of Li Zongjiu, the first thing to do was to catch him off guard. One move to kill. How stupid of you to fight with my palm. Die! The Black Mountain Sword King roared, and then a terrifying force poured out from his palm. Boom! Boom! The two terrifying forces collided. The Black Mountain Sword King roared, "If you fight with my palm, the first thing I will shatter is your hand." As soon as his voice fell, the Black Mountain Sword King's own arm seemed to have been poured into a meat grinder. In an instant, the flesh and blood danced like snowflakes in the sky, but this was red blood and minced meat. Ah! My hand! Blood-extinguishing palm. When Li Zongjiu attacked, it was the blood-extinguishing palm that he had not used for a long time. Among all these moves, the one that Li Zongjiu was most comfortable with was the blood-extermination palm. But the enemies he had encountered recently were just so, and Li Zongjiu did not even need to use his Yuan skill. Now, the Black Mountain Sword King was only slightly passable. Therefore, he subconsciously used the blood-extinguishing palm. The force of this slap directly shattered the blood on the Black Mountain Sword King's arm. Bang! Not only did his arm explode, but the other half of his body also exploded in an instant. Boom! A bloody hole appeared on the shoulder. The Black Mountain Sword King immediately understood that a hidden force had entered his body. Immediately, the Black Mountain Sword King pointed a few times on his body to stop the hidden force in his body. Hiss! The next moment, the Black Mountain Sword King saw a ray of light appear in front of him. His old partner of many years also made the Black Mountain Sword King's neck feel the sharpness of the Black Mountain Sword for the first time. Sit, do you want to eat fried dough sticks? Li Zongjiu hurriedly greeted Xiao Zhao when he saw her appear behind him. Just now, he had wanted to find someone from the 7-star firehouse. After all, the Black Mountain Sword was useless to Li Zongjiu. Besides that, the Thunderfall Sword was useless in his hands. He might as well exchange it for some money. Or perhaps exchange it for some fire attribute weapons for the Li family to use. Young Master Li, I can't eat. I was preparing to go to the shop to work. I happened to pass by and saw you here, so I came to say hello. Xiao Zhao didn't expect to see Li Zongjiu in front of her house. You live here? Li Zongjiu asked. Yes, my house is nearby. Okay, I'll go to your house for dinner next time. By the way, help me exchange this thing for some money or fire attribute weapons for your young master and send it to the Li family in Luoxia City. Li Zongjiu said. As he spoke, he also handed over a storage ring. It was the storage ring of the Black Mountain Sword King. All the things inside were transferred to Li Zongjiu's southern ring. Okay, no problem. Xiao Zhao said happily. This young master Li Zongjiu had helped her time and time again. Moreover, he was very good to her. If Li Zongjiu was willing to go to her house for dinner, she would naturally be very happy. After receiving Li Zongjiu's storage ring, he didn't say anything and quickly left the place. Chapter 674. After breakfast, when he returned to the White Deer Manor, he just so happened to hear an extremely crazy roar coming from the backyard. At the same time, an extremely powerful shockwave swept over. Ha ha ha! I broke through. I broke through. Shadow Fox's shout came from the back of the courtyard. Li Zongjiu shook his head in disdain when he heard Yinghu's shout. What a bunch of mortals. Breaking through to the Yuan monarch realm was an extremely basic thing. In some ancient factions, breaking through to the Yuan monarch realm was just the beginning. If the youngsters in these factions could not break through to the Yuan monarch realm before reaching adulthood, they would be treated like trash. There were no exceptions. This old fellow is so noisy. Dou Linger, who was sleeping soundly in the room, turned over and pressed the pillow to her ear. Li Zongjiu felt helpless when he saw what was happening in his manor. A person who had just broken through to the Yuan monarch realm was shouting and yelling. This was simply shameless. He did not know what to be proud of when he had only broken through to the Yuan monarch realm at such an old age. There was also someone who claimed to be his personal bodyguard. However, he had never seen this bodyguard by his side when he was killing people. He had always rushed out alone to kill people. Li Zongjiu was puzzled as to who was protecting who. The Howling Moon Wolf King's condition had recovered considerably. After all, the injuries he had suffered last night were not serious. Furthermore, he had the body of a Wolf King, so his injuries were recovering rapidly. Li Zongjiu had also undergone some treatment last night. After the treatment, all his injuries had recovered. When he saw that Li Zongjiu had returned, he raised his head and glanced at him. Then, he obediently laid down in front of Dou Linger's room. He opened his mouth and yawned. Then, he stretched his body and went back to sleep. Young master, I broke through. Ha ha ha. Yinghu dashed out of the backyard and arrived in front of Li Zongjiu. He was so excited that he almost started dancing around Li Zongjiu. One could only imagine how happy Yinghu was. In order to wait for the arrival of this day, they did not know how long they had waited. Previously, he had been roaming around the city day after day. Although he was only a half-baked assassin, he had still made a name for himself in the Sacred Flame Royal City. However, if he hadn't met Li Zongjiu, his cultivation would have been crippled in no time. The number of masters in the city was extremely terrifying. In the future, the number of masters would only increase. For people like him, if he couldn't make a breakthrough in time, even if he wasn't killed while carrying out a mission, it was very likely that he would be killed by his enemies in the course of his daily life. That's enough. What are you showing off for? Li Zongjiu said indifferently. Although Yinghu had learned the doppelganger technique due to his talent, it was still very simple. You are practicing the doppelganger technique, right? Take my doppelganger origin technique and study it well. Li Zongjiu casually took out a low-grade spirit stone and used his mental energy to draw a Yuan rune array on the low-grade spirit stone. This Yuan rune array was a kind of information Yuan rune array. Li Zongjiu could use his mental energy to seal some things within this Yuan rune array. As for others, they only needed to use their mental energy to scan it slightly before they could see the contents of this Yuan rune array. What, this is, the doppelganger origin technique. Yinghu took the Yuan rune stone and his eyes were filled with disbelief. Yesterday, Li Zongjiu saved his life and he was already grateful. However, at the same time, Li Zongjiu also restored his shattered Yuan rune bead. One could only imagine how hard it was to do so. Therefore, Yinghu was actually very grateful to this young master. This young master fell from the sky and appeared in front of him to save his life. Today, not only did he give him his Yuan rune bead, he even gave him a precious doppelganger origin technique. This made Yinghu so touched that he was speechless. Scram to the side. If you still need me to save you next time, you can just wait for your death. My Bailu Manor doesn't need trash. If you can't keep up, I'll have no choice but to replace you. Li Zongjiu said indifferently. Yinghu also understood what Li Zongjiu meant and immediately nodded his head. Young master, don't worry. Yinghu will definitely not disappoint you. Yinghu said solemnly. If it weren't for Li Zongjiu, he would have lost his life long ago. Therefore, Yinghu also knew how to be grateful. Even though his strength had broken through, he had never thought of leaving Li Zongjiu and living a carefree life. Ever since he followed Li Zongjiu, he had seen all kinds of experts dealt with by Li Zongjiu. He also deeply understood that if one did not have sufficient strength, it would be very difficult to survive in this world because one could be killed at any time. That old black man from last night, I will definitely hunt him down to the ends of the earth. Yinghu thought of the Black Mountain Sword King from yesterday. There was a hint of viciousness in his eyes. If it weren't for this person's ruthless methods, he wouldn't have had to suffer like last night. As an assassin, it was normal for him to take revenge. He originally didn't have much confidence, but now he had broken through this threshold. Therefore, Yinghu was full of confidence in his own strength. He had a chance to break through his own realm at any time and continue on his path of success. It might not be impossible for him to fight with the Black Mountain Sword King in the future. That guy is a grade 4 Yuan monarch. It's still too early for you to fight with him. Li Zongjiu said indifferently. Chapter 675. Hearing this news, Lu Wenshan's heart trembled in fright. To think that Li Zongjiu would be so cruel and merciless as to kill the Black Mountain Sword King. Lu Wenshan dared not imagine that he had chased after the Black Mountain Sword King directly. It was not that Li Zongjiu did not have the ability to do so. Lu Wenshan recalled how he was caught by Li Zongjiu even though he had already escaped from the Shi family. Lu Wenshan had experienced Li Zongjiu's relentless pursuit. Go ahead. I'm going to cultivate in seclusion for a while. Li Zongjiu waved his hand. This manor seemed to be a little small. If they wanted to set up something else, it would obviously not be enough. You said that the land was sold to Chao Wu Pavilion. I think this piece of land is just enough for me. Li Zongjiu asked Ding Hu to take care of these matters. The Chao Wu Pavilion's land had not started construction until now. Obviously, they had encountered some trouble. Ying Hu was naturally not good at these things, so he immediately went to Buyue Casino and told Taifai about it. When Taifai heard that they wanted to buy land, he naturally contacted them directly. Later, he found out that this piece of land belonged to the Boulders Business Alliance. It was a piece of land that had been collectively purchased. The Boulders Business Alliance was not a small business alliance in the city. Previously, the Chao Wu Pavilion had intended to buy this piece of land as an outdoor project, but the members of the Boulders Business Alliance did not reach an agreement. In order to buy this piece of land, they had to buy a barren mountain and a piece of wilderness not far away. These two pieces of land belonged to several businesses in the Boulders Business Alliance. Once this piece of land near the core of the White Deer Manor was sold, they would not be able to buy it. Naturally, no one would be interested in the leftover land beside it. Naturally, the Chao Wu Pavilion was unwilling to spend so much money. Therefore, the negotiation was stuck at this stage. Both sides refused to budge. These businessmen needed to see real money before they were willing to let go. After Tai Feihe followed up on this matter, he roughly understood the whole story of the matter. After learning about this, Taifai realized that if he wanted to buy land, he would have to spend twice as much money to buy the barren land beside it. This really gave Taifai a headache. Recently, the business of these casinos had been declining day by day. This was because a few special casinos had been set up in the city with the support of several factions. Therefore, these types of casinos were very popular, causing the performance of these traditional casinos to gradually decline. Young master, since you want to buy it, I will buy it first. Taifai knew Li Zongjiu's character very well. Since he had made up his mind, he would never give up. Even if he had to resort to unscrupulous means, he would achieve it. The piece of land originally encircled by the Chao Wu Pavilion, which was almost the same size as the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor, was priced at 600 billion gold yuan, which was equivalent to 6 billion purple yuan. It was a total of 1,000 mu. Each mu of land was priced at 6 billion gold yuan. In terms of purple yuan, it was equivalent to 60 million purple yuan. Li Zongjiu had only spent 80 million gold yuan when he had bought the small manor. The price of 1 mu of land was indeed quite expensive. In addition to the core land of 1,000 mu, the barren land and Yellow Mountain, which were close to 10,000 mu of land, were also priced at 10 billion purple yuan. The total cost was 16 billion purple yuan. Although the Chao Wu Pavilion was not short of money, it was not rich either. After all, it belonged to the Shengyan dynasty, so it needed to be allocated by the dynasty. If it had been 60 purple yuan, it would have been reasonable. But now, it was a total of 160 purple yuan. This was only the money to buy the land. After that, they still had to carry out construction. Some of the land was simply a wasteland without the slightest bit of spiritual qi. Even if they bought it, they would need to spend a lot of manpower and financial resources to nurture this piece of land again. Only when it was nurtured well would it be suitable for these students to cultivate. If it was not nurtured well, it could only be used to rear pigs. With such a conservative estimate, they would need to spend at least 30 billion purple yuan to build the land. The cost would be too great. Therefore, the Chao Wu Pavilion could not bring themselves to do it. If they bought the land and didn't have enough purple gold, they would probably go bankrupt and the entire project would be ruined. The expansion of the construction itself was to use this construction to attract some attention, and then use it to raise the threshold of tuition fees and so on. Even if it was an academy, it still needed to make money. If it did not make money, how could it maintain these martial arts fanatics? For example, the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor, the more they operated, the richer they became. This was because the elixirs refined by these academies were all sold to the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor. Firstly, they could exchange it for some money. Secondly, they could obtain a certain amount of contribution points to increase their sense of honor. In this academy, they would obtain more convenience. It was an extremely wonderful thing. Buying elixirs at a low price and then selling them at a high price was naturally a way to make money. But the Chao Wu Pavilion was different. This group of martial arts fanatics would get injured easily and eat a lot. Elixirs, food, and even clothes were in short supply. Naturally, they became poorer and poorer. It was quite miserable. Therefore, one should not judge these people by their appearance. In fact, only they themselves knew the hardships they suffered. Tai Fai brought Du Lieni to find the people from the Boulder Business Alliance. After negotiating for nearly half a month, they finally bought the land at a price of 13.5 billion purple yuan. This matter was considered to have come to an end. Fortunately, these people had bought the land before Li Zongjiu came out of seclusion. Otherwise, it would not be strange if Li Zongjiu directly got rid of these businessmen. On the other hand, when Xiao Zhao handed the storage ring to Song Jieyu that day. When Song Jieyu first saw the storage ring, she knew that it was not simple. This was because a storage ring of this quality could only be worn by a Yuan monarch elite. When she opened the contents of the storage ring, Song Jieyu was completely stunned. Let's not talk about the thunder beheading blade and the thunder crushing sword. The forging method of the Black Mountain sword in her hand was very profound. In addition, it had been nurtured by a Yuan monarch elite for a long time, which gave the Black Mountain sword an extremely domineering attribute. Even if it was used for research purposes, it would still be very valuable. This sword, I'm afraid it has some history. She put the Black Mountain sword aside. Then, Song Jieyu saw the remaining two weapons, the thunder crushing sword and the thunder beheading blade. Together with the sword case, these two weapons are definitely the pinnacle of craftsmanship in the forging world. Song Jieyu exclaimed repeatedly. If these two weapons were sent to the forging room and the blacksmiths were invited to study them, these blacksmiths would probably faint from happiness. These three weapons were definitely considered priceless treasures. Even obtaining one of these weapons would be a great honor. If these three weapons were used well, it would definitely improve the craftsmanship of the 7-star fire room to another level. The status of the 7-star fire room in the world of weapons was similar to the status of the 1000 Flavors Herb Hall in the world of elixir pills. It was just a place to buy and sell weapons and was not very prominent. True Yuan monarchs and even Yuan monarchs would not come to the 7-star fire room to customize weapons. There were even more sects and clans that refined weapons in the underworld. Although the threshold for this industry was not low, it was not as difficult as refining elixir pills. In the current era, there were more than 10 big shots in Alchemy Street, and they were all ranked among the top in the underworld. The Bright Thunder Craftsman Workshop, which belonged to Qingyuan Villa, was ranked among the top 15. Chapter 676. The 7-star fire room could only be considered as buying some weapons. It was still a matter of quantity. In terms of forging techniques, a little bit of precision was enough. In the future, the development of the 7-star fire room would definitely encounter a bottleneck due to the rapid growth of competitors. Moreover, the forging techniques had reached the limit, and there was no way to continue to improve. Now, Li Zongjiu had sent these weapons. It was enough to improve the current level of the 7-star fire room. Of course, the research involved was also very tiring. If I'm not wrong, this sword should belong to the Black Mountain Sword King. How did it appear in Li Zongjiu's hands? Song Jieyu couldn't help but wonder. She was somewhat familiar with the Black Mountain sword in her hands. After all, they were all in the line of making weapons. She more or less understood these things. If she remembered correctly, the Black Mountain Sword King's Black Mountain Sword should have come from the craftsmanship of the Black Armor sect. The Black Armor sect's development in Yuan tools was mainly towards the development of armors. Relying on the resources in their hands, they could forge the strongest defensive armors in the world. Of course, if these armors wanted to be strong, their weapons couldn't be weak. Otherwise, how would they be able to test the strength of your armors? The craftsmanship of the Black Armor sect is above that of the Bright Thunder Craftsman Workshop. Although this sword is not as good as the Bright Thunder Craftsman Workshop, after some consideration, the things that can be obtained will definitely be more than these two sabers and swords. Li Zongjiu's move could be said to be a timely help. If you said that you wanted to buy a weapon like this, the other party would probably treat you as a fool and directly buy it back. How could such a thing happen? It was extremely difficult to obtain such a top weapon. Even if one went directly to a sect like the Black Armor sect, one might not have a chance to obtain these weapons. How should I repay such a big gift? Song Jieyu couldn't help but have a headache. These things could not be solved with just some money. Therefore, Song Jieyu couldn't help but worry about this. But soon, Song Jieyu also thought of a very good idea, and the corners of her mouth could not help but curl up slightly. If that's the case, no amount of money can satisfy them. Instead of giving it to Li Zongjiu, it's better to directly support the Li family of Luoxia City. Song Jieyu quickly ordered her men to make preparations. At the very least, they had to open a branch in Luoxia City. Moreover, this branch would be directly managed by the Li family. At the same time, the Li family was in charge of all weapons exports within the Dingquan province. This was undoubtedly an extremely important decision. Even with Song Jieyu's current status, there was no way she could make the final decision for the time being. However, Song Jieyu only needed to show a little of this thing to shut these people's mouths. This was obviously an opportunity to make friends with Li Zongjiu. That would definitely not be wrong. From the previous incident, it had already been shown. The three major alchemy magnates attacked Li Zongjiu at the same time, but in the end, they ended up killing each other, and it was unknown whether they were dead or alive. This situation was even more shocking and shocking. After a little investigation, those who were slightly familiar with Li Zongjiu knew about it. The development of this matter must have something to do with Li Zongjiu. Therefore, Song Jieyu also took this opportunity to make friends with Li Zongjiu, and even the Li family. To Song Jieyu, paying a little was not a problem at all. Even if there were some slightly discontented voices in the elders' seats, they were all calmed down by Song Jieyu. Moreover, Song Jieyu personally set off to discuss and develop this business. The Li family in the Luoxia city only needed to sit inside and wait for such a big business to come looking for them. Such a great opportunity had been delivered to their doorstep. Now, the Li family no longer had any opponents in the Luoxia city. Even the city lord had to avoid the Li family. Fortunately, the relationship between the two families was not bad, and there were no major problems at the moment. The days in the Sacred Flame Royal City gradually stabilized. Recently, some things couldn't help but be restrained, and the days went on as usual. A month later. In the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor, the year-end assessment was also very naturally carried out. Li Zongjiu, who was supposed to appear, did not appear. It was as if he had disappeared, and became extremely low-key. However, as the only participant in the first year of the Heavenly Dawn department, Kun Arashi's strength was also displayed in front of everyone, and he suppressed everyone. He took first place in the year. Mu Qingyun, Mo Suli, and the others in the same year were all defeated by Kun Arashir. Moreover, in the final competition of the whole school, Kun Arashir also extremely arrogantly charged into the top 10 of the year. His ranking on the Alchemy Master ranking had impressively reached the 10th place. He directly squeezed Li Zongjiu down. However, Kun Arashir knew in his heart that if Li Zongjiu went up, he wouldn't even have the chance to be presumptuous. Moreover, if it wasn't for the wisp of flame that Li Zongjiu gave him, the residual sun fire, It wouldn't have been easy to achieve today's achievements, and he had to be extremely grateful to Li Zongjiu. However, after this battle, the name of this youth from Kuan Castle also gradually spread in the Sacred Flame Royal City, causing people to be extremely shocked. They were shocked that this youth from Kuan Castle actually had such great ability. If it wasn't for the fact that there were a few people above, Kuan Erasure would probably have directly jumped into the sky. 3 days later is the time to enter the secret realm. Why hasn't the boss appeared yet? Kuan Erasure had won glory for Ling Yan, and he had already promised the two of them that they could enter the secret realm of the academy to comprehend when they were in the White Blaze Mountain. This time, he naturally had to fulfill his promise. According to Li Zongjiu's performance in the Sacred Flame Royal City, it was enough to see that this Li Zongjiu's strength had already surpassed the level of an ordinary student. Therefore, Ling Yan didn't care about this Li Zongjiu at all, and let him fend for himself. However, since he had promised Li Zongjiu, he naturally had to fulfill it. In 3 days' time, they would enter the secret realm to cultivate. With such a good opportunity, Kuan Erasure naturally wouldn't let it go. Moreover, Li Zongjiu had previously instructed that this matter must be settled, so Kuan Erasure also came to Li Zongjiu's White Deer Manor to wait. It had already been 2 months since he went into seclusion. In these 2 months, Dou Ling had already fulfilled her promise and guarded here for a month. It should have been time for her to leave, but she didn't. Instead, she continued to stay in the White Deer Manor. The weather in winter was slightly cold, but there wasn't much of a change. On the 3rd day, Li Zongjiu finally walked out of the secret room. At this moment, looking at Li Zongjiu's temperament, it was surprisingly gentle. At the same time, looking at Li Zongjiu's appearance, it seemed that Li Zongjiu's every move contained a majestic aura, as if with a wave of his hand, he could stir up the wind and clouds within 10,000 miles. Damn, boss, what happened to you? Don't tell me you became a monk. Chapter 677. Kuan Erasure was astonished by the feeling of having nothing to worry about. There seemed to be a feeling of transcendence. In just a short 2 months of closed-door cultivation, there had already been such a terrifying change. If he continued his closed-door cultivation, he might directly walk out of it as a bald head. This is the realm. What do you know? Li Zongjiu said. During his closed-door training, Li Zongjiu had been studying the Hell Prajna technique. However, the Infernal Prajna technique was like entering hell itself. Even for someone of Li Zongjiu's level, it was extremely difficult to traverse the quagmire of hell. However, Li Zongjiu had more or less figured out the general cultivation method. Cultivating the Hell Prajna technique was to create one's own 10 directions hell. 10 directions hell was Li Zongjiu's final and complete form of space control. As for what kind of power would appear in this space, it was up to Li Zongjiu himself. No matter what kind of attribute it was, it had to be refined to the peak state. Now, Li Zongjiu was preparing to open the first hell. However, with Li Zongjiu's current strength, it was still difficult to open it by force. He needed to be lucky. As for the attribute to be opened, Li Zongjiu had a little idea in his mind. He wanted to integrate the blood-soul world into his 10 directions hell. This fusion process was extremely long and required the support of a large amount of yuan power. During this period of time, Li Zongjiu had not been able to complete this process. He had merely figured out how to proceed on this path. The rest of the matter would have to be done slowly. This is for you. The second scroll of the universe 9 revolving needle. You can leave this place at any time. Li Zongjiu handed Dou Ling, a primeval stone engraved with elemental runes. 2 months ago, countless people were fighting for it. But now, it had fallen into Dou Ling's hands so easily. Even Dou Ling herself was a little surprised. Although she had waited for an extra month, she had been very relaxed in these 2 months. In her free time, Du Lianyi would also come to the mansion. Then, he pulled the shadow fox to sit down and play cards with him. Life was pretty comfortable. Of course I have to take it, but I have nowhere to go in the city. I have graduated this year, so I might as well give you face and accept your invitation to stay at your house for a while. Dou Ling took the primal stones and said naturally. I didn't invite you. Li Zongjiu stared at Dou Linger with wide eyes. Yeah, boss didn't invite you. Lan Kun also seriously tried to recall, but Li Zongjiu didn't seem to have said such words. Say that again. Dou Ling turned to look at Kun Erisher. She clenched her fists and a crisp sound burst out from her fingers. Immediately, Kun Arashi's heart thumped. Then, he looked at Li Zongjiu. Boss, you did invite me just now. Did you forget? Clearly, in these 2 days, Kun Erisher, the first year's #1 in Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor, had been beaten very badly by Dou Ling. Basically, he had no chance to make a comeback. The #1 on the alchemist list was definitely not someone who could climb up so easily. Let's not talk about this first. Tomorrow is the opening of the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor's secret realm. We have to hurry back and prepare. If we're late, there won't be any good seats. I heard that everyone can gain different insights in the secret realm. Some people can even directly break through a big realm in the secret realm. Kun Erisher was a little excited as he thought about it. He also imagined that he could enter the secret realm and obtain an unexpected fortuitous encounter. Then, he could directly break through. From then on, he would reach the peak of his life. But that kind of situation was rare. You're going to the secret realm? That place is very boring. It's just a pile of broken statues. Dou Ling said. As the eldest senior sister of the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor, Dou Ling had naturally been to the secret realm to observe more than once. So when Dou Ling jumped out and said this, it was very important. Statues? Li Zongjiu was puzzled. In his previous life, he had never entered the secret realm. Because Li Zongjiu's identity was not a disciple of the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor, he was blocked by the seal of the secret realm. He did not have the chance to break through, even with his supreme being strength. If he forced his way in, he could only destroy the secret realm. At that time, those old fellows of the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor would naturally jump out and fight Li Zongjiu to the death. The gains would not make up for the losses. So this time, Li Zongjiu wanted to properly experience the legendary secret realm. Yes, you'll know when you get there. Dou Ling nodded and said. Since Dou Ling wanted to continue staying here, Li Zongjiu had no reason to ask her to leave. In any case, during this period of time, with Dou Ling's feeding, the Howling Moon Wolf King's strength had increased by a lot. After all, Dou Ling was a powerful alchemist. At the very least, her alchemy skills were not below that of the Nantian Pill King. Moreover, Lu Wenshan had learned his lesson recently. He obediently became a slave in the White Deer Manor. By refining pills, they could exchange them for food, blankets, and other things. With Lu Wenshan's skills, the pills he refined were passable. So the Howling Moon Wolf King and Shadow Fox could be said to be treated very well. Since the two of them were happy, Lu Wenshan's situation naturally became more comfortable. As for whether there was a problem with the pill, Dou Ling only needed to take a look at it to know clearly. Therefore, it would not be easy to do anything to the pill. There were only 3 people in the entire White Deer Manor. 2 of them were better than Lu Wenshan in terms of alchemy skills. This made Lu Wenshan feel that there was nothing to be proud of. He might as well continue to stay here and learn. Perhaps Dou Ling would come and give him some pointers one day when she was in a good mood. Then, he might be able to make a breakthrough. Unknowingly, even the arrogant Lu Wenshan had learned to behave in the White Deer Manor. He no longer dared to be arrogant and domineering. Instead, he had developed an extremely humble and low-key mentality. In the White Deer Manor, there were equivalent to 3 Yuan monarchs guarding it every day. For such a small place to have so many experts, it was truly shocking. Young master, wait a moment, wait a moment. The Qi family asked me to pass this to you. At this moment, Inghu ran out of the kitchen. Ever since he had made a breakthrough, besides cultivating, Shadow Fox had been cooking. He had even bought some fish and placed them in the pond in the courtyard. Every day, he would go fishing and bring the fish to the kitchen to make a pot of fish soup. Shadow Fox had sent over a box. There was an elemental inscription seal on the outside of the box. If the box was opened, it would be impossible to restore it. It was guaranteed that no one had opened it before. If it had been opened before, it would be obvious at a glance. The Qi family sent it. Li Zongjiu recalled that he had saved the Qi family's transport team in the wild forest. Among them, there was a supreme-grade Yuan Stone King. Until now, Li Zongjiu was still regretting that he didn't kill all of them and take away the King of Primordial Stones. Now that he saw the box, he immediately opened it. Suddenly, a surge of Yuan Qi was released from the box in his hand. Buzz! That roar was so loud that it even caused these people to stop breathing at this moment. Kuan Erisher and Dou Ling-er's eyes widened instantly. This is a supreme-grade Yuan stone. Dou Ling-er's eyes widened. What was the relationship between the Qi family and Li Zongjiu? They actually gave Li Zongjiu a supreme-grade Yuan stone. No, this is not a supreme-grade Yuan stone. This is a fragment of a supreme-grade Yuan stone. Dou Ling-er was shocked after sensing it carefully. However, the ninth prince was the first to suffer a blow. The ninth prince's subordinate clans had already been suppressed to the point where they were almost completely wiped out. In addition, the vice-commander of the city guard army had actually rebelled. This made the ninth prince immediately want to distance himself from this matter. He didn't dare to hesitate or linger on this matter. If he was really accused of rebelling and selling firearms, he would be in big trouble. If he was convicted of the crime, the ninth prince would not be able to protect himself. The Spring Flower and Autumn Moon Pavilion. Since Li Zongjiu had eliminated most of the experts from the poison sect in the southern region, it had gradually gained a foothold in the city. It had also maintained a very good relationship with Li Zongjiu's Li Chamber of Commerce. The Pan family's fate was naturally very miserable. Du Lianyi naturally would not let the Pan family off. Inaction was a mistake in itself. Therefore, Du Lianyi did not let the Pan family off. Up to now, the ninth prince's forces and arrangements had been abolished. In addition, the ninth prince had a good relationship with the young pavilion master of the Changxing Pavilion. The ninth prince more or less bore some responsibility. Now, there were 7 battalions under the city guard army. The strength of the Tusk Battalion had increased by leaps and bounds during this period. Its recent momentum was also quite fierce. If this continued, Wang Ding would be able to take over the position of deputy commander in less than half a year. This was surprising. Wang Ding, who didn't have anyone supporting him, was actually able to reach this stage. The main reason was that the Tusk Battalion under him was too powerful. He was even able to defeat 2 of the other battalions during the army competition. What did this mean? It was equivalent to having an extra battalion of soldiers. This level of training was not something that could be achieved by ordinary people. If this continued, the Tusk Battalion could be trained to the level of one of the 4 trump cards. This was no longer the strength of the city guard army. This terrifying breakthrough was really shocking and unexpected. However, Wang Ding did not forget that the reason why he could reach this stage was because of Li Zongjiu's nurturing and opportunities. This matter would naturally be brought up later. On the morning of the second day, Li Zongjiu and the rest of the students came to the square and waited. Kuan Erisher stood beside Li Zongjiu and introduced the changes in the past 2 months. First of all, the Genius Tower had been broken through 3 days ago. Now that the 15th floor had been opened, the Genius Tower had truly entered the next era and level. What's there to be proud of? Li Zongjiu said indifferently. The genius tower had a checkpoint of 7 floors. Since the 14th floor had been broken through, the following 7 floors would be very simple. With Li Zongjiu's current strength, he could easily break through the 20th floor and beyond. The main thing was that Li Zongjiu had already seen some of the things behind, so there was nothing to be proud of. There's nothing to be proud of. If you have the ability, go and try it. Someone heard Li Zongjiu's arrogant and ignorant words and immediately stood up to ridicule him. There were not many people gathered in the square, but the person who came up was someone that Li Zongjiu knew. Guosi. When Li Zongjiu saw Guosi coming forward, he immediately frowned. To be honest, even if this person was asking for a beating, if you rushed up and beat him more than 10 times, it would be annoying. This was not even a challenge at all, so why did he always look like he was courting death? I might as well just kill this kid. Li Zongjiu thought in his heart. But soon, Guosi moved aside, and a figure walked out from behind him. This person looked a little unfamiliar, but looking at the way he walked, it was obvious that he had some foundation. Even Guosi was willing to be his little brother. Boss, this person is the one who broke through the genius tower, the 3rd year Qian Wuji. Wasn't Dou Ling ranked first before? Now it's this guy. Kuan Erisher said beside Li Zongjiu. The person in front of them called Qian Wuji was the guy who was ranked 2nd on the alchemist ranking. Because he was always suppressed by Dou Ling, Qian Wuji worked hard to surpass this woman. With this hard work, he rushed to his current position. After coming out of seclusion, he received even more attention. He enjoyed the attention and worship of the people around him. For Qian Wuji, this kind of thing made him really happy. Now, the entire Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor had to give way to Qian Wuji. Everyone who saw him had to call him eldest senior brother. And now, when he appeared in the square and was ready to accept the admiration of everyone, who knew that he would hear someone slander him and look down on him. Some people are only good with their mouths. Don't let your mouth be cut off one day. When that time comes, let's see what else you can do. Qian Wuji said with a ruthless face, as if he was already thinking about when to find someone to cut off Li Zongjiu's mouth. Li Zongjiu and Kuan Erisher followed behind. Qian Wuji and the rest were behind them. They stared at the 2 people in front of them with resentment and hatred. These 2 are really arrogant. I'm going to make sure they don't get anything in this mystic realm. It's time to teach them a lesson. Otherwise, they will really think that no one in the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor can take care of them. Guosi, who was at the side, was also fanning the flames. He had long wanted to humiliate Li Zongjiu and Kuan Erisher. He wanted to return the pain and humiliation that Li Zongjiu had inflicted on him by 2-fold, 3-fold, or even 10-fold. This time, he couldn't let go of such a good opportunity. With Qian Wuji taking action personally, it wouldn't be difficult to deal with these 2 people. Chapter 680. Why didn't Shueiyue come? Li Zongjiu asked Kuan Erisher as he walked. Previously, Shueiyue and Kuan Erisher were quite close, but now, he hadn't seen Shueiyue for a long time. Mo Suli and Mu Qingyun saw her, but they just greeted each other. They weren't really good friends. After all, Mu Qingyun didn't agree with some of Li Zongjiu's methods. Shueiyue seems to have something going on at home. She doesn't want to tell me. I don't know what's going on. She hasn't come to class for a long time. Kuan Erisher scratched his head and said. Obviously, this matter had been troubling him for a long time. However, if he wanted to take care of these things now, it seemed that he was still a little lacking. Therefore, Kuan Erisher was also desperately trying to improve his strength during this period of time. Kuan Erisher was also very clear about this point. Only by improving his strength could he solve any problems. Just like Li Zongjiu, Kun Erishur hadn't seen Li Zongjiu being troubled by anything. Take some time to understand. Just as the two were talking, the crowd also came in front of a huge stone door. Around the stone door, there were impenetrable mountain walls, and they looked more solid than ordinary mountain walls. At the door, there were two old men sitting cross-legged on the stone platform. Judging from the surrounding dust, the two seemed to have been sitting here for a long time. When they saw Qi Dan coming with people, they opened their eyes. Two elders, I've brought the students to enter this secret realm to train. Even with Qi Dan's identity, he was still very respectful to the two people in front of him. When he said that, he also cupped his hands. Well, the strength of these students this year seems to be a little weak. One of the elders could not help but say as he surveyed his surroundings and looked at the various students and disciples before him. Since even the vice headmaster had to be so respectful to this person, the other students naturally did not dare to say anything. Why didn't that girl come? The other person also looked around, but didn't see the person he wanted to see. His heart sank, and he was obviously dissatisfied. This made Qi Dan's face look quite awkward, because he didn't know where that girl was now. In this year's batch, only Qian Wuji is slightly worthy. Wuji, you go in first. The elder who was mocking these disciples at the beginning said. This elder's name was Elder Bai Ku, and the other elder was Elder Sui Rong. The two together, they were once the famous Ku Rong duo in the underworld. Now, they were in the Heavenly Medicine Manor, helping the Heavenly Day Medicine Manor to guard this secret realm. People couldn't help but sigh. However, there was no need to doubt the strength of these two. Elder Bai Ku had a good impression of Qian Wuji. Now that he saw Qian Wuji here, he naturally had to greet him. Under the envious gazes of the crowd, Qian Wuji came in front of Elder Bai Ku. When most of the people had gone in, Yi Zichen suddenly opened his eyes. Li Zongjiu and Kun Erishur went forward together. You must be Li Zongjiu. I advise you to keep a low profile. In this world, there are many capable people. Elder Bai Ku looked at Li Zongjiu, who had stepped forward, and said in an indifferent tone. He had the attitude of a powerful expert as he commented on Li Zongjiu. Just guard the door properly. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Li Zongjiu said disdainfully. Then, his body disappeared into the boundary in front of him. Chapter 681. Only Elder Bai Ku's face was left, and his face instantly turned purple. As elders, they didn't have the qualifications to enter this secret realm. Even someone as strong as Li Zongjiu couldn't barge in. Therefore, after Li Zongjiu and Kun Erishur rushed in, they couldn't do anything. The only thing they could do was to wait for the two of them to walk out on their own. However, this would take some time at least. Li Zongjiu's words just now almost choked Elder Bai Ku to death. Basically, he wouldn't be able to recover in half a day. The anger in his chest could only be forcefully suppressed in his chest. It was difficult for him to spit it out. One had to know that there were still so many students who hadn't entered yet. Where would he put his old face? Mo Suli also hadn't entered yet. At this moment, when he saw this exciting scene in front of him, he was also a little surprised. Mo Suli's impression of Li Zongjiu wasn't bad. At least Li Zongjiu's actions were more in line with Mo Suli's heroic image. However, Mo Suli felt that if Li Zongjiu continued to cause trouble, something would happen sooner or later. In the 2 months when he didn't appear, it was peaceful. However, the moment he appeared, he actually angered Elder Bai Ku. This Li Zongjiu's guts were really big. One had to know that Elder Bai Ku's battle record was quite glorious. 20 years ago, he was definitely a top expert who dominated a region. Now, he was actually mocked by Li Zongjiu. When Li Zongjiu was captured, Li Zongjiu's ending wouldn't be so good. Sigh, this guy really isn't afraid of anything. Mo Suli had a headache. Following this, no one dared to be presumptuous. If they weren't careful, wouldn't they bump into the muzzle of Elder Baiku's gun? Then, it wouldn't be strange if he directly threw them out. Before they entered, Elder Baiku was the one who had the final say. At that time, if they say that they won't let you in, then you won't be able to go in. Li Zongjiu and Kuan Erishur had just landed. This seemed to be the entrance of a dilapidated palace. The surroundings were desolate, but there was an extremely large open space. The people who had entered before were all standing there. Behind him was the boundary that he had just entered. If he was accidentally thrown out, it would be equivalent to leaving the secret realm. Seeing the arrival of Li Zongjiu and Kuan Erishur, Li Zongjiu smiled. Qian Wuji, who was sitting on the steps in front like a moon surrounded by stars, slowly stood up as an extremely excited smile appeared on his face. The two of you are finally here. Now, kneel before me and I will consider allowing you to continue cultivating in this secret realm. Close to 20 people had already gathered around Qian Wuji. There were a total of 50 people, and almost half of them were already standing beside Qian Wuji. If these people casually launched a mental attack, it would be extremely easy to form a terrifyingly strong mental storm. In fact, there was a certain method to break through the boundary of this secret realm. With the help of others, you might be able to break through more easily. Some of the barriers that you couldn't break through, but this depended on how many people were willing to help you. If no one was willing to help you, then you would be useless. Therefore, this team was extremely important right now. Those 20 people were all veterans, and basically all of them had come to the secret realm once. Therefore, after entering, they directly chose to hug the thighs of others. Previously, when they were outside, they were still a little reserved, but after entering, they didn't hesitate at all. The deeper they went, the more profound the things they could comprehend. Therefore, for the sake of this opportunity, these people could accept a little grievance. As your senior brother, I can kindly remind you that if you are accidentally thrown out, there is no other way. If you want to enter again, you can only wait until next year. Qian Wuji threatened. He was clearly telling Li Zongjiu that if Li Zongjiu didn't listen to him, he would directly throw the two of them out. The space behind him fluctuated, and Mo Suli and Mu Qingyun also walked in. However, when they saw the grim situation in front of them, they knew that things weren't good. These people had obviously joined forces and were waiting to throw Li Zongjiu and Kuan Erishur out. Even if these people really did so, it was understandable. What could they do? Don't bother about these things. Mo Suli immediately wanted to go out and argue, but Mu Qingyun pulled him back, wanting to persuade him not to interfere in these matters. After all, both sides were walking on different paths. He helped me before, I can't just sit by and do nothing. Mo Suli shook his head, then walked up to him. Senior brother Qian, just as Mo Suli was about to speak and discuss with Qian Wuji, he saw a figure appear beside Qian Wuji. If Mo Suli didn't see wrongly, this person was Li Zongjiu. When did he appear? Why was he so fast? Even Qian Wuji was taken aback. What are you trying to do? Qian Wuji exclaimed. In the next second, Li Zongjiu directly grabbed Qian Wuji's sleeve. Then, with a bang, he directly threw Qian Wuji onto the empty ground in front of him. Bang! Qian Wuji's entire body was lying on the ground, falling right in front of Mo Suli. When Mo Suli saw this scene, he was instantly stunned. What are you doing? Guosi also shouted, but in the next second, Guosi's entire body was grabbed and thrown forward. Bang! Guosi directly fell in front of Kuan Erishur. Li Zongjiu leaped and arrived in front of Qian Wuji. He directly stepped on Qian Wuji's face, causing blood to splatter from his nose. Move aside, the blood will splatter on your skirt. Li Zongjiu said to Mo Suli. Chapter 682. Qian Wuji fainted from the beating. In front of Li Zongjio, it could be said that he had no power to fight back. Wasn't Senior Qian Wuji the #1 expert on the alchemist list? Why was he lying on the ground like a dead dog? You. What are you doing? Someone stood up and said. After all, they had just hugged Qian Wuji's thigh. Now, in the blink of an eye, they saw their thigh being stepped on. Such a scene was a little confusing for these people who had just clung on to Qian Wuji. At this time, should they rush out and avenge their thigh? At the same time, they should perform well. However, their performance must be within the scope of their ability. Otherwise, if they rushed up rashly, they would at most be sending their heads to their deaths. That would be really not worth the loss. Li Zongjio turned around and glanced at that person. That person seemed to be deterred by an invisible force and immediately scratched his head. As he looked left and right, he seemed to want to say that the person who spoke just now was not him. You are violating the rules of the academy. Guosi was also beaten up by Kuan Erasure. Kuan Erasure had long wanted to beat up this seemingly cultured scum. Now that he had this opportunity, how could he let it go? After a round of beating, Guosi's face was also beaten black and blue. Throw him out. Li Zongjio kicked the unconscious Kuan Erasure on the ground and sent him flying. He just happened to roll under Kuan Arashi's feet. Then, Kuan Erasure directly grabbed the two people on the ground, one in each hand. No, don't throw me out, no, Guosi exclaimed, but there was no change in his behavior. Kuan Erasure directly threw the two people out of the boundary. At this moment, outside the stone door, Qi Dan had also turned around and left after completing her mission. There were a few disciples who had arrived late and could only stand outside the stone door in frustration. They were filled with regret. Even though they knew that there was such an important matter to attend to today, they still chose to sleep for a while. Looking at the expressionless faces of the two guardian elders, they did not dare to speak at all. Who knew if they would directly beat them up? Baiku, tell me, who do you think will be able to last the longest among the little fellows this time? Elder Sui Rong scratched his white beard and said with a smile. Although the two of them cultivated different cultivation techniques, they had worked together for many years and traveled the world together. The relationship between them was very sincere. Seeing that Baiku had not recovered from the humiliation he had suffered, Yi Mo decided to find a topic to talk about. It doesn't matter who lasts the longest. I'm waiting for that brat to be thrown out so that I can personally cripple him. Baiku said coldly. He actually dared to say that he was a gatekeeper, and even told him to cut the crap. With his cultivation level, just a few words of advice from him would be enough for them to be grateful to him. He actually dared to boast so shamelessly. Let's see how many people in the Jianghu will jump out to take care of him in the future. After angrily speaking, Elder Baiku's thoughts changed. Why should he make things difficult for a brat with such a loose tongue? Wouldn't that be lowering his own status? Wouldn't that destroy the state of mind that he had cultivated for so many years? After calming down, Elder Baiku's eyes flickered. If we're talking about who can last the longest, it would be this brat, Qian Wuji. Previously, that brat had already charged into the sacred hall, but unfortunately, she didn't have enough luck. I wonder if this brat can make it into the sacred hall this time. Elder Baiku nodded and said. The mysteries of the sacred hall are things that even you and I couldn't pry into in the past. Who knows how many reincarnations it will take for someone to discover it. Elder Sui Rong sighed and said. These people were also very curious about some of the secrets of this secret realm. However, after going there once, they deeply understood that the secrets inside were not something that they could pry into. Their current cultivation level was far from being enough. Just as the two of them were chatting, a few light runes suddenly flashed on the stone door behind them. Seeing this scene, the two of them immediately revealed a shocked expression. Ha! Elder Baiku's face was also filled with a trace of astonishment. Could it be that someone is being thrown out now? I'd like to see which unlucky brat it is. Just as Elder Baiku's voice faded. Bang! Two figures flew out in an instant and smashed onto the floor. Both of their faces were colorful, and most of their eyes, noses, and the like were already in a distorted state. Anyone who saw them couldn't help but be shocked. Oh my God! Isn't this? When they were barely able to distinguish the two people lying on the ground, the two of them were shocked. Wasn't the one who was thrown out, Qian Wuji, whom Elder Baiku thought highly of? The other one was also Guosi, who was pretty good. However, Guosi's luck was obviously not as good as Qian Wuji's. However, at the moment, the two of them were fated to meet the same fate. They were both thrown out. Who on earth had such great ability to throw these two people out? One was ranked first on the Alchemy Master ranking, while the other was ranked third in the Alchemy Master ranking. However, the two of them were now lying on the ground like dead dogs. Moreover, their faces were beaten to such a state that it was difficult to recognize them. Elder, you have to seek justice for us. Even though Guosi was a man, when he saw this, his heart could no longer hold it in. He burst into tears. Since he was young, when had he ever suffered such grievances? This caused Guosi to feel grief and indignation. Who had the guts to throw you out? Even Elder Sui Rong couldn't stand it anymore. It was one thing to throw them out, but to beat them to such a state was too arrogant and too much. It's Li Zongjiu. And Kuan Erasure. These two bastards. Elder, quickly go in and kill the two of them. Guosi said with extreme grievance. Qian Wuji still hadn't woken up. It was obvious that Li Zongjiu had hit him a little too hard. As a result, Qian Wuji still hadn't woken up. Shut up. Fighting and killing, where is your decency? Elder Sui Rong's face turned solemn. It was fine if it was just a fight, but if it escalated to the level of revenge, then it had to be treated strictly. No one would tolerate it. Every disciple of the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor was nurtured with great care. How could they lose their lives because of a personal grudge? It was too absurd. Therefore, killing each other was absolutely forbidden in the academy. Chapter 683. Guosi finally came to his senses after being yelled at. However, the mystic realm that he had been waiting for a year for had been thrown out by Li Zongjiu before it even started. How could Guosi still have the face to stay there? He immediately cupped his hands at the two elders before turning around and leaving quickly. He had to leave this heartbreaking and despairing place. This Li Zongjiu is quite arrogant. Even Elder Sui Rong couldn't tell what was going on with Li Zongjiu. To be able to do such a thing and throw out two experts on the alchemy master role, his strength couldn't be underestimated. Therefore, Elder Sui Rong was also wondering how far Li Zongjiu could go in the mystic realm. In the mystic realm, when the remaining people saw Kuan Erasure throw out the two of them, they didn't dare say anything. They just stared at Li Zongjiu and Kuan Erasure. Is there anyone else who wants to spar with me or make a bet with me? Li Zongjiu clapped his hands. He vaguely remembered that when they were outside, Qian Wuji seemed to have made a bet with Li Zongjiu, saying that they wanted to see who could last the longest in this secret realm. In the blink of an eye, he had been thrown out. According to the previous bet, Qian Wuji had to be Li Zongjiu's medicine boy for a year and eat Li Zongjiu's shit for a year. The scene in front of them was indeed unexpected. Fortunately, they hadn't made the bet before. Otherwise, Qian Wuji would be too ashamed to show his face after leaving this place. The remaining people looked at Li Zongjiu and Kuan Erasure and subconsciously opened up a path for them. It's not time for the restriction to be activated yet, so there's no way to break through the boundary in front of us. Kuan Erasure said as he looked at the scene in front of him. It's not that we can't force our way in. It's just that the difficulty will be 10 times greater than the opening day. Mo Suli said. Li Zongjiu's style of doing things was really surprising. However, after getting familiar with it, they felt that Li Zongjiu was truly afraid that it would be too late for revenge. Normally, if there was a grudge between them, they would take revenge on the spot. Is that so? After Li Zongjiu heard this, he also walked up the stairs. At the end of the stairs, there was an invisible wall. When Li Zongjiu reached out his hand, he found that it was blocked by a force. No matter how much strength you used, the invisible wall would return the same amount of strength. There's no need to forcefully try. This level of power is not something that we can break through. Mo Su Li couldn't help but say. If Li Zongjiu forcefully tried, he might be seriously injured by the power of the boundary. That was why he said that. Li Zongjiu took half a step back when he heard this. Mo Su Li and the others thought that Li Zongjiu was about to give up. Then, they saw Li Zongjiu raise the fist in his hand and abruptly smash it towards the invisible wall. Boom! A fist smashed out. Suddenly, an invisible vibration rang out, and the terrifying fluctuation immediately spread out in all directions. When the surrounding people felt the vibration, they couldn't help but simultaneously retreat. They even hurriedly covered their ears with their hands, forcibly suppressing the power. Li Zongjiu naturally felt the appearance of this power. The enormous rebound force immediately swept towards Li Zongjiu's body. Whoosh! Li Zongjiu also forcibly suppressed the power in his body. Only then did he not fly out. If that happened, it would be a great loss of face. It was no wonder that Mo Su Li would say such words. However, his words just now could only be considered as Li Zongjiu not being ready yet. This thing is pretty hard. However, I like to beat hard things into soft things the most. Immediately, Li Zongjiu took another step back. After taking this step, Li Zongjiu's fist directly emitted a golden light. This golden light appeared in an extremely low-key manner. Then, Li Zongjiu suddenly smashed his fist out. The terrifying golden power also accompanied Li Zongjiu's fist as it smashed towards the invisible wall. Boom! At this moment, the incomparably tough energy wall was also broken. Then, Li Zongjiu's body was directly sucked in. He entered the next level. The rest of the people did not have time to rush in. They saw Li Zongjiu disappear before their eyes. When they saw this scene, everyone was stunned. That was something that was impossible to happen, yet it had happened right before his eyes time and time again. Such a living example, witnessing such a shocking scene, made their jaws drop. Suddenly, Mo Su Li, who was behind him, was also extremely shocked. He saw Li Zongjiu directly enter the next level. In his heart, he also understood that Li Zongjiu's power had far exceeded theirs. Furthermore, this mystic realm seemed to be a place for people to venture into. If one could directly enter the second level, it would be equivalent to staying in the second level for 6 whole days. They would not have to waste time in the first level. Is it that awesome? Let me give it a try. After seeing this scene, Kun Erasure calculated in his heart. He naturally understood that as long as the power reached a certain level, he would be able to bring himself in. It could be considered as breaking through the next level and reaching the next level in advance. If there were any treasures in the next level, it might be taken away by others in advance. When he thought of this, Kun Erasure naturally began to try without stopping. However, when Kun Erasure threw out his first punch, he did not feel the power of the barrier. He was immediately sent flying by the power of the barrier. Bang! Kun Arashi's entire body was sent flying for nearly 20 meters. He was almost blasted out of the first area's barrier. Damn, it's so fierce. Kun Erasure ate a mouthful of mud. When he got up again, there was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. However, Kun Erasure did not give up. Kun Wing Spear. The long spear in his hand. At the same time, a terrifying flame was released from his body. The fire of the setting sun. The Kun winged spear in his hand followed the power of the fire of the setting sun and immediately rushed towards the barrier in front of him. Boom! The terrifying power overlapped and instantly blasted a hole in the barrier in front of him. At the same time, Kun Erishur was also sucked in by the spear. Whoosh! Many people heaved a sigh of relief when they saw Lan Kun and Li Zongjio, these two perverts, disappear before their eyes. At the very least, they wouldn't have to worry about being thrown out by others if they were still here. However, at the same time, they were also surprised. With the strength of the two, they were able to force their way through the barrier. This meant that their strength was very terrifying. At the same time, it also let them know that the game of this secret realm was not meant for them to wait here. Instead, it was meant for them to continuously rush through. After finding the correct way to open the barrier, the disciples of Heavenly Day Medicine Manor also began to move. Boom! Boom! Many people used too much strength and did not have enough strength, so they were directly sent flying. Those who fell in the secret realm were considered lucky. A few who were unlucky were directly sent flying out of the secret realm. Just like that, this trip to the secret realm ended hastily. When they got up, they did not even know what was going on. Elder Sui Rong and the others thought that Li Zongjio had thrown them out again. That was too arrogant. The people at the back had already learned their lesson. Everyone helped each other and made sure that they didn't fly out. Some also worked together to attack. In the process of repeated attempts, some people successfully broke through. Just like Li Zongjio and the others, they entered the second zone. Immediately, the remaining people became excited as if they had been injected with chicken blood. They did not stop attacking. They wanted to force their way through. Li Zongjio's fist was shining with golden light. At this moment, the Golden Dragon original spirit also exploded with unprecedented power. It carried Li Zongjio all the way out. Li Zongjio didn't bother to calculate which level he had arrived at. However, along the way, it seemed as though every level of the area was also a scene of this sect. This is a dojo. Chapter 684. The surrounding area was filled with ferocious-looking statues. In the middle was a wide platform. It was the martial arts practice platform. Usually, if there were any fellow disciples who wanted to spar with each other, they would spar here and communicate with each other. Hence, there were many marks left on the floor. Li Zongjio walked through the few areas in front of him. He did not feel any strange changes in the surroundings, even though the density of the Yuan power had increased. However, for the great sects of the ancient times, the Yuan power was the most ordinary existence. Now, the secret realm of the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor was no longer mysterious. It was the entrance to the remains of an ancient sect. It was hard to say whether the entire ancient sect had been fully explored by others. Based on Li Zongjio's current situation, the secret realm was meant for these disciples to explore this ancient sect. Li Zongjio had seen many remains of ancient sects in his previous life. The most recent one was the Compassionate Travel sect. It was quite famous in the ancient times, but it gradually declined after surviving until now, which made people sigh. Although the current Compassionate Travel sect's strength was not good, to a certain extent, its potential was very terrifying. If there was an opportunity in the future, the Compassionate Travel sect would definitely be able to grow to a terrifying extent. A sect like this should not be underestimated. It was just waiting for the time when it would explode in the future. Because this area was different, the auras left behind were also different. In the beginning, one could only feel a little bit of aura at most. However, it was different in this training ground. The aura around them was fierce and fierce. If one thought that a martial arts maniac was here, they would definitely go crazy. However, for Li Zongjio, these auras were nothing to him. He was not interested at all. So what if it was an ancient sect? In his previous life, Li Zongjio was a supreme being expert. If he was in this ancient sect, he would be more than qualified to be a sect master. The combat experience of these disciples was completely useless to Li Zongjiu. The main hall should be up ahead. Li Zongjiu looked at the magnificent building in front of him. There were bronze beasts guarding the entrance on both sides, eyeing it covetously. He didn't come here to find some martial arts experience, but to find the pilgrimage path. If he didn't have the pilgrimage path, even if he walked in, it would be useless. This should be where Dou Ling was talking about the statues. Clearly, Dou Ling had also come to this place in one go. Then, if you feel bored here, why don't you move on? In fact, just the amount of energy consumed to reach this place was already extremely terrifying. Back then, Dou Ling was able to force her way to this place. It was likely that she had exhausted all her strength. If she wanted to continue, she would need to use even more strength. In front of the main entrance of the main hall, Li Zongjiu stood there quietly. He stretched out his hand to touch the wooden door in front of him and immediately felt a strong sense of rejection. At the same time, there was also a hint of warning. It seemed to be warning Li Zongjiu that if he didn't belong to the sect, if he rashly entered, he would definitely be killed. After several attempts, Li Zongjiu also clearly felt that the strength of the boundary here was much stronger than other places. Do you think this can stop me? Li Zongjiu smiled disdainfully. He, Li Zongjiu, had walked through countless difficult roads since the beginning. What kind of obstacles could he not overcome? Just as well, let me try the hell skill that I just opened. 10 directions hell, blood soul hell. Li Zongjiu's whole body was covered in a layer of red light. His eyes also turned crimson red. Now that there was no one around, Li Zongjiu no longer hid his strength. He released the dragon soul power, and in this space, an extremely terrifying aura reverberated. The majesty of the dragon clan descended. Although Li Zongjiu's current strength was enough to protect himself and even stand in an invincible position in front of an epic emperor powerhouse, it wasn't impossible for him to kill an epic emperor powerhouse if he went all out. However, if people knew that Li Zongjiu had the dragon clan original spirit in his body, it would cause unnecessary trouble. It would definitely cause unnecessary trouble. At that time, it might even alarm a sovereign expert. Unless Li Zongjiu could be reborn again, he would definitely die in front of a sovereign expert. However, Li Zongjiu did not have to worry too much about this. Because even a sovereign expert would not be so idle. Furthermore, it was already very difficult to find anything that could move such an expert. Unless one was extremely unlucky, such as Li Zongjiu accidentally bumping into a supreme being who was currently roaming the world. If that happened, everything would be over. Every supreme being wanted to search for a path of pilgrimage. Even if they had just broken through to the supreme being realm, they would still want to break through one day. However, this was obviously not a simple matter. Therefore, when the slightest possibility appeared in this world, it would attract the attention of a sovereign expert. Don't be fooled by the fact that these guys were usually aloof. However, if something related to them or even something they cared about appeared, they would definitely become 100 times more terrifying and vicious than the wolves in the world. It was better to be careful. When the terrifying aura spread out, the space around Li Zongjiu was also constantly changing. It seemed like there was a black blood aura that was constantly lingering. After lingering once, the surrounding space completely changed. A bronze door appeared in front of Li Zongjiu. It was the entrance to another boundary. Golden Dragon Original Spirit. White Dragon Original Spirit. The two original spirits were once again attached to his body. In the preparation of this punch, not only did it contain the powerful physical strength, but it also contained Li Zongjiu's extremely terrifying mental strength. Boom! Li Zongjiu punched out. First of all, within his blood soul hell, it was already covered with a layer of extremely powerful force. Then, it directly rushed out. It seemed like there were two dragon souls, entwined with each other, and madly rushed out. It fiercely hit the bronze door in front of him. All of a sudden, the rebounding force was reflected back at the same time, covering Li Zongjiu's body. Li Zongjiu had long been prepared. The blood soul hell covered his whole body, guiding this force into the blood soul hell. Immediately, he was in the middle of hell, surrounded by the dark and cold force. However, Li Zongjiu also clearly felt the collision between the two forces. It seemed like it wanted to destroy Li Zongjiu. Fortunately, the blood soul hell was still strong. He managed to block the terrifying energy. Buzz! Li Zongjiu felt his body become light, and then he was sucked in. Chapter 685. Li Zongjiu entered the room with a sudden realization. Suddenly, a terrifying aura came from all directions and landed on Li Zongjiu's body. Boom! It was as if there were boulders pressing down on Li Zongjiu's body from all directions. It was clear that there was such a strange pressure in this place. It wanted to make Li Zongjiu kneel in the hall. The sudden force did not make Li Zongjiu panic. The golden dragon's soul appeared behind Li Zongjiu as it unleashed a domineering aura to help Li Zongjiu withstand the pressure from the surroundings. It was only now that Li Zongjiu felt the pressure lessen. Oh. That is. Li Zongjiu's eyes lit up when he saw an item displayed on the table in front of him. Could this be the desolate heaven essence? What appeared in front of Li Zongjiu was a weapon similar to the Kong Long Jian. However, this desolate heaven essence was completely white and there was an extremely tyrannical wild aura on it. It looked like there was a white wild aura circulating around it. This situation also caused Li Zongjiu to be shocked. The weapon in front of him seemed familiar. In the future, it had also been obtained by an arrogant young man. Even though that young man was only at the Yuan monarch level, he had been able to whip Yuan monarchs wantonly with the desolate heaven essence in his hand. That was very powerful. It also made people drool over this weapon. Later on, a group of experts came out from the depths of the vast wilderness and took away the desolate heaven essence, saying that it was a sacred item left behind by their ancestors and belonged to them. And that young man's whereabouts were unknown since then. When that young man appeared, Li Zongjiu had only seen the desolate heaven essence in some scrolls. At that time, Li Zongjiu had just stepped into the Yuan emperor level and did not care about these things. If this thing was so easy to obtain, it would not have been his turn at that time. Li Zongjiu knew his own limits. Now, he could actually see the desolate heaven essence with his own eyes. It also surprised Li Zongjiu. It was said that the desolate heaven essence was refined from the ridge of a sacred mountain in the depths of the vast wilderness. And in the vast wilderness, it was refined using the wild aura for countless days before finally refining the desolate heaven essence. When it was casually used, it had the power to pierce through 10,000 mountains. I never expected the desolate heaven essence to be in the heavenly star medicine manner. If this is the case, then this sect remains should be related to the great desolate lands. Li Zongjiu thought to himself, but at the same time, he admired the Shengyan dynasty's methods. They had built an institute on top of the ruins. Such a method made it impossible for outsiders to say anything. Whether it was the Genius Pavilion or the Secret Realm, they were all products of this ancient sect. However, it was very natural for the heavenly star medicine manor to use them. Even if it was traced back to the past, it was still unclear how it came to be. Furthermore, at the time when the Shengyan dynasty was at its strongest, who would dare to take the initiative to find trouble? Even if they knew, they could only pretend not to know, and at the same time, applaud the Shengyan dynasty. Speaking of the desolate heaven essence, it was definitely an extremely sharp weapon in the early stages. Li Zongjiu was tempted. In his previous life, the Yuan monarch was able to defeat an primitive emperor with the desolate heaven essence. If it was in his hands now, he would definitely be able to unleash an even more terrifying power. In addition, the desolate heaven essence itself was a weapon that contained the wild aura, so it might have many other unexpected uses. After obtaining this weapon, the powerhouses of the vast wilderness would come out to cause trouble. It wouldn't be easy for them to take it away from Li Zongjiu's hands. No matter what, he had to take it first. It wasn't easy to obtain the desolate heaven essence. The pressure he felt just now was released by the desolate heaven essence. It was also because there was a desolate heaven essence in the room that outsiders couldn't open it. Without sufficient strength, it would be difficult to succeed. Li Zongjiu's punch just now was equivalent to exceeding the realm of an primitive emperor. Therefore, the power of that punch was something that few people could achieve, even in the heavenly star medicine manner. Li Zongjiu took a step closer to the desolate heaven essence and immediately felt the pressure on his body rise. Boom! The ground beneath his feet was fine, but Li Zongjiu could already feel that his body was enduring a rather terrifying force. Interesting. Li Zongjiu's lips curled up. This kind of extremely challenging thing was his favorite. Many times, he had climbed up from the abyss of death. This was enough to prove Li Zongjiu's strength and his incomparably tenacious willpower. White Dragon Origin Spirit. Rise! Behind him, another ray of white light appeared. The two dragon souls appeared, and the pressure on his body suddenly weakened. When the power of the two dragon souls filled the entire room, it felt like it was about to collapse. In terms of pressure, they were already equal. However, Li Zongjiu liked to use a domineering stance. Blood Dragon Soul. Boom! When the power of the Blood Dragon Soul spread out, it was as if the world was falling apart. The desolate heaven essence's aura finally retracted. It had been sleeping here for many years and had never met an opponent. Even if someone came here, they would be easily intimidated by it. Where did such a powerful aura come from? It was naturally shocked and it suddenly appeared in front of it. You're scared? I haven't even used my fourth origin spirit yet. Just the appearance of the three dragon souls was enough to make the desolate heaven essence in front of them look down on the world. Following that, it stunned the desolate heaven essence before them. Li Zongjiu easily took 2 steps forward and grabbed the desolate heaven essence in his hand. At first, the desolate heaven essence put up some resistance, but in the next second, it admitted defeat and was easily picked up by Li Zongjiu. Boom! A mountain-collapsing aura spread out in all directions. The desolate heaven essence had been sleeping here for many years. Now that it was finally picked up by someone, even the desolate heaven essence itself felt as if it had seen the light of day again. Not bad. Li Zongjiu weighed it in his hand. When he casually waved it, it felt as if the space around it would explode. Wouldn't this move be able to obliterate even a Yuan monarch expert? This weapon is enough for me to refine. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.